the beauty and solitude of the CDT was some of my favorite. Not as many people, so I saw a lot more animals. A little scary going through Bob Marshall. Bob Marshall Wilderness has the highest concentration of grizzlies. I remember one night I heard what sounded like a murder. Something being murdered. And I sit up and I'm like, I'm terrified right now.
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek, brought to you by Topo Athletic. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Reminders, if you guys love the show and your cinnamon connection, paprika pals, it's been a minute, so we've gone through our old school nicknames.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, I thought I couldn't hear you just now. I've got a hat on.
Oldest trick in the book. If you guys want to support your paprika pals, what were some of the older ones?
Cinnamon connection, the cumin something. Someone said cumin something.
Yeah.
The
turmeric team, I think.
Turmeric team, that was it.
Yeah. If
Not
you guys
cumin.
want to support the turmeric team, which definitely hasn't been words connected in 7 years, head on over to patreon.com/backpackerradio. Not only do you support us, but you also will get the episodes ad-free. So if you're the sort of person that doesn't like ads, there's your way. You can get it for as little as $5 per month. Not even per episode, per month. Also, we're heading to Austin. April 17th at Soundspace at Captain Quack's. What a name. We have a super secret, surprise, awesome guest. Do you want to peel back another layer of the...
Ooh, yeah. What was the next one I had thought? 5 letters. And that could either be the full name or the abbreviated name,
okay.
But that is your hint.
Yeah.
Is 5 letters.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. Starting to fill in a picture.
Yeah,
here.
well, I figured we'll get more and more specific as we get closer.
Yeah.
But, still not specific enough.
Yeah. If people want to shoot their shot, take their guess in the Instagram comments of any of the posts that go out for this episode, we'll send the first person a sticker. How about that?
I love when you make promises.
Yeah.
Who's
this
gonna,
comes down to
who's gonna do it?
A-Dog, AJ.
Congrats, you've got your first task.
Yeah. I just now get to sign you up for things that you didn't want to do.
Zach just likes to make promises and then continue his day.
That's why we have to hire someone to fulfill them, because it's not going to be me. Lastly, but not leastly, if you're taking on a long-distance trek in 2025, head to the link in the show notes to apply to be a trek blogger. This year is going to be better than ever. Jess Stone is running the ship, and she's got a bunch of cool new features for the program, including a mentorship program, some gear discounts with our favorite backpacking brands, and at the end of the year, we're going to fly one standout blogger out to Denver, come stay in Golden, and you get to join us here on Backpacker Radio. So if you're taking on a long distance trek 2025, link in the show notes, apply to be a trek blogger. Okay. Do we have anything else?
No, I
what
think
do you
that
wanna
covers
say?
it. I was just thinking in my head as we were talking.
Thinking in your head? Is it an interesting thought?
No.
Okay. Let's get to our interview with Ben Ginger Ballz Vaughan, is a Navy veteran, accomplished thru-hiker, and dog musher. After a long career in the Navy, Ben began thru-hiking and is, in a few short years, completed the PCT, AT, and CDT. I don't know why it was presented that order, as well as the Hayduke Superior Hiking Trail, Long Trail, and more. And in 2021, Ben began mushing in remote Alaska, and he now runs guided sled dog tours here in Colorado. Can't read today. Ben, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've listened to your podcast since 2018, so very honored to be here, so thank you.
One of our OGs.
Thanks.
Ginger Ballz.
Yes, sir.
What's the story there?
So it started out as Old Man Ginger Ballz, because I was hiking with a bunch of younger hikers, and they were calling me Old Man the whole time, but I was out hiking them. So, and then obviously there's probably some sophomore humor in there with the color of my beard. Used to be a little bit more ginger years ago, and then the other aspect was I was always the first one to do something like jump off a waterfall or run to the top of a mountain. So they're like, at some point somebody said, "Hey, old man, you got balls." So it was OMGB, Old Man Ginger Ballz. And I was like, that's too long, too many syllables. And so then just shorted Ginger Ballz, and then it kind of got shortened to Jeebs. So there's a lot of hikers out there that call me Jeebs. So.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love that you embrace the trail name so much that you've made it your Instagram handle as
well. I shortened it to Hiking Ginger B my mom's on Instagram.
Sure. Was it hiking ball or Ginger Ballz at one point?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was just Ginger Ballz.
I'm misremembering that.
So it's the other account you're following, Hiking Balls. Zach's favorite.
I do love me some OnlyFans. Cool. Well, I want to talk about your military background.
Yeah.
How old were you when you got into the Navy?
So I just turned 19, enlisted. I didn't have anything. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I was like, I love surfing. So I kind of grew up surfing. So I was like, well, if I join the military and I pick the Navy, I'm always going to be on a beach to surf. That was really the reason I joined. I was a dumb kid. And so it really worked out for me. I was enlisted for about 7.5 years, and I got a commission, became an officer, and finished out the majority of my career as an officer and retired lieutenant commander after 22 years. So yeah, I had quite a few combat deployments in there. Started out with Desert Storm, and that's kind of what made me say, this is real. I want to stay in the Navy, make a career out of it. I want to become an officer. And then it was pretty easy there for a while, and until Iraq really kicked off, 2005-ish, 6-ish, around then. A couple deployments, Balkans, Sarajevo was, a highlight. It was a big NATO event, so we were launching a lot of missiles when I was there. And then my final 3 deployments were back to back to back, and that kind of wore me out a little bit. So one was on a ship, a lot of good, exciting stories there, chasing pirates, terrorists. Next one, I had a small boat unit, had 80 sailors and 6 small boats, 50 cal on the front, M60 on the back, M4 grenade launcher, and we could just deploy anywhere in the world. So we did southern Iraq and Kuwait for that deployment. Came off of that. 45 days later, I went to Baghdad with 18th Airborne Corps, U.S. Army, all the way, for any of you Army airborne people there. So I did a year there. It was more of a staff job, but, we were getting mortared almost every night. So I indirectly worked for General Petraeus, and the last Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, is who I worked for more directly. Technically it was a staff job, but it's still pretty hot sometimes.
Yeah. You want to move on from the military talk at any point, just let me know. But I'm curious, what's it like chasing down pirates?
That was going to be my question. I can't believe you just put your little finder on the same part I was going to.
So initially it's very exciting, but then I'll tell you the story. So I was on watch. I was on a destroyer, and I was tactical action officer. So that's the person who kind of fights the ship, So over the radio I hear Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. It was a civilian vessel. And on radar, we could see where they were, so we just, all ahead full, 30 plus knots, rushing to them, and we could see there was a pirate boat coming in to try to attack them. So then,
Quick question. How do you know it's a pirate boat?
Just by their actions. They're shooting at the ship.
They don't have the flag, though?
No, there's no pirate flag.
I kind of wish.
Well, they all had eye patches, too. So.
No, they didn't. Stop! Okay, continue.
That was a big problem in Somalia, because they would go on, take the ship, hold it for ransom, get money, go back to Somalia. So that's kind of what their thing was. So once they saw us, we got everybody on deck with 50 cals just ready to, protect that civilian ship. And they skirted inside the 12-mile limit of Somalia. So we recognized that. So then we had to back off for it. So not a great ending to the story, kind of anticlimactic. But
you can't pursue them a certain distance from Somalia?
From any country. So we recognize 12 miles for every country. So
interesting.
Is that the delineation for international waters?
It is.
Okay.
So they got to take care of it from there, like that country?
Yeah, but Somalia wasn't taking care. Somalia doesn't have a functional government, so.
Interesting.
And the pirates know that, so they come out, try to get a ship. If U.S. Navy comes after them, they just skirt back inside 12 miles.
Interesting. So you guys just happened to be by this civilian ship, or it was like you get the call and how far do you have to go? What's the time difference?
Well, we were doing counter-terrorist operations in that area, and so then we got the call. It wasn't part of our mission. We just reacted to it.
Interesting.
So they come out guns a-blazing? Like if they encounter you, they're just shooting right away, or?
Well, they're not going to shoot at a destroyer.
Yeah.
Because that's going to end badly for them. But the way they take over the ships, there's a bunch of different tactics, but they will come in, I'm sure they throw like a hook and ladder over, climb up, take over. Because at the time, the civilian ships didn't have weapons. And so one of the ways we were countering that is we would put service members on the ship with 50 cal on the civilian ships with 50 cals, or it could have been Coast Guard possibly, and they would protect the shipping lanes, because that's the U.S. Navy's whole mission, is to keep the sea lanes free and open.
Yeah. I've seen, I don't know how I got in this TikTok algorithm, but I was in this one where it was like the North Sea. It's like the whole, like that, all music. But then there were a bunch of them that were pirates. Like pirates are coming on the ship. And I, for the life of me, thought these videos are fake because, like, just seems like that surely there's not a pirate climbing that giant ship. But then again, like, how can you get this video of this giant ship if you're not on that ship? I don't know. So I'm like so fascinated by it. But do you think, I don't know how much time you spend on TikTok, do you think those videos are real or do you think they're fake?
So I'm not on TikTok, for the record, for all the listeners. But no, there's a lot of real videos out there showing
Really?
the pirates and all that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it's not as big a thing now, but there were quite a few years where that was their business model. They would send, a warlord would send out a bunch of pirates with weapons and say, go find a ship, take it over. Then we get ransom money. Then we let the ship go, and they just repeat.
That's crazy.
And you served for how long?
22 years.
Okay. And that's long enough to get the pension?
Yeah. So at 20 you can retire and you get a pension.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that seems like the natural tangent to the hiking career, because is that what allows you financially to disappear for long periods of time?
It definitely helps.
Yeah. So tell me about the transition time between the military and finding the AT.
So as soon as I left the military, I went right into government contracting, and I did that for about 6 years. And honestly, all I was doing was chasing money. I wanted the big car, I wanted the big house, I wanted all the toys, and I wasn't happy. And
where were you living at this time?
I was in Coronado, California.
Okay.
And I realized that. So, and the whole transition from the military is very difficult for a lot of people. I mean, 22 suicides a month. And reflecting, what I think a lot of that is that loss of sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. You go from your whole life as military, where you're going next, you got a paycheck, you're trying to climb the ranks, you're trying to do all this stuff for the country, and all of a sudden it's gone. Like overnight, it's gone. So I think that's part of the struggle for a lot of people. And then, there's the PTS issue as well. So after chasing the money for a while, not happy, I went to Virginia Beach and worked for a running company. They, shout out to J&A Racing. Jerry and Amy they used to own about 7 races, and their biggest one is Shamrock Marathon. So I helped put on races all year and some triathlons and some other things. And that still didn't quite scratch the itch. So at one point, I quit that job, and a week later, I sold my car, sold property, sold all my surfboards, sold my golf clubs, sold every toy I could imagine, put whatever I had left in a small storage unit that I still have, and I've probably visited 4 times in the past 6 years. Obviously, I don't need the stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to go hike the AT. And they're like, you've lost your mind. And then it was funny, at the office I worked at, half of them were betting that I couldn't finish, and the other half were betting that I would. And I was like, oh, that's fuel. Come on, got it.
Did you grow up outdoorsy?
So I grew up in Midland, Texas. There's not a lot to do outdoors other than like baseball and some football and track. Definitely no hiking. And then I moved to Florida when I was 13, and I really got into surfing. And so I was always on a beach surfing. So not hiking a lot, but I remember as a kid we went to Yellowstone, we went to Mount Rushmore, trips like that. But that's like once a year, so nothing hardcore. So yeah, I picked the AT because it was closest. I could take a bus down to Dawsonville. Yeah.
Like, how does backpacking even fall on your radar? Because for me, I had to have like a friend like come to me and tell me about the AT.
All right, so I got a good story there. So I was dating this girl. She was East Coast, I was in California, and we'd just do some awesome stuff. Flew out one long weekend, and she said, we're going to go hiking up in New Hampshire. And I was like, yes, let's do it. And we're right there at Franconia Notch. And, excuse me, we're doing, 10 miles, 5 miles up, 5 miles down. I was like, man, this is awesome. And then on one day, we get to the top of a ridge up in the President's Range, and we're eating lunch. and these dirty they looked horrible. They come walking by and they sit down to eat. I'm like, so where'd you guys come from today? You know, I did 7 miles. And they're like, Georgia. I'm like, what? You're lying. I'm like, where are you going? And they're like, Maine. And then she slaps me or hits me and says, dumbass, that's the Appalachian Trail. And so that put it in my head. And I wanted to do it right when I retired, but my daughter she was either last year of high school or going into college. It just didn't fit. And then, you know, I get offered all this money to work as a contractor. And so I put it aside, but it was still always there. But that's the first time I think I'd read Bill Bryson's book, but I didn't put it together.
Yeah.
And, but up on top of that mountain, meeting these hikers, they smelled so bad, as you know. And I'm just like, these guys are crazy. But that
planted the seed.
Planted the seed.
Is you're committing hard when you're selling all your stuff and you're getting rid of all these things? Like, are you thinking about that in the first 20, 30 miles? Like, oh,
no.
shit, I can't quit.
No, I was like, I sold everything. Let's go. I'm going all the way to Katahdin. So.
Yeah. Do you think having the military background made it so that you could go into it with that confidence of?
Definitely. I've always been a big runner, triathlete. Like I used to be really into Ironman. I did Kona. You know, I think that residual fitness kind of helps. I knew what footwear to use. What I didn't know is I should be ultralight or as close as possible to ultralight. That's the way to do it. And so, like I was telling Zach earlier, I probably had a 45-pound pack, and I'm like, I had 3 of everything, and I needed hardly any of it. And I learned over the AT, I haven't seen this in 2 weeks. I don't need it. You know.
It's funny because you were mentioning that you encountered someone who was finishing their Triple Crown, and your initial instinct was, I need to save this person's life. And
so,
it was actually the opposite.
So this was at the start of the AT, and I've got my giant pack. I'm like, all right, ready to go, get my tag, do the little end brief. And then shout out to Scrapbook. You know, I think he was like 19 or 20. He's got this tiny pack. I mean, he has toothbrush cut in half and probably half the bristles pulled out to save weight. And, you know, I look at him like, I'm going to have to save this kid's life because there's no way he's going to survive. And he's looking at me like, this old man's going to die out here. And we just kept camping at the same spot. We were on the same pace. And so he's like, hey, man, you start giving me advice on, like, you need to lighten that pack. And I probably didn't listen to him the first week or so. And then, you know, we go into town. I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't need this, don't need that. And I wasn't ultralight by the end, but I was probably down to 20 or 25 pounds.
Yeah.
More doable.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff were you getting rid of?
Pants, cotton T-shirts, big medical kit. You know, I had 5 pairs of socks. You know, just extra of everything that you don't need that you learn.
Yeah.
You know.
So, did you do like through hiking specific research? Or are you just going off of like what you had gathered from the military, or? You
know, so the year before So the seed was planted, and I was working on it. So I went to REI, and I happened to run into a thru-hiker. I can't remember her name. And I said, okay, I need a backpack, a tent, and, you know, something else. I don't remember. I'm like, but I want to use it on the AT, like for a thru hike. And she sold me this 5-pound Osprey, which, you know, back then Osprey were a lot heavier. But she was like, lifetime guarantee. And then I got a little heavier... what was the orange Big Agnes back in the day? Copper Spur, which, I mean, that's a great tent. I still have it. Yeah. Actually, my daughter uses it now when she goes hiking. I've had it since 2017. So they definitely last. But, you know, now I'm more into the ultralight.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ultralight. I'd say I'm about 11 pounds base weight, which is close enough for me.
Yeah. How'd your kids react when you told them that you were going to do this?
Oh, they thought I lost my mind. All my friends, family, everybody. They're like, hey, there's no way. You can't walk from Georgia to Maine. I'm like, people do this. I can do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I went in. I didn't know a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could just grind. I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. So. Did you feel, because you cited, like, one of the good things about your time in the Navy is you've got a sense of purpose. Like, you know what you're doing every day. Like, you're moving toward a goal. Did you feel that restored immediately when you got on trail?
Almost immediately. Also being in the backcountry with like-minded people, like we're all the same. It doesn't matter where you come from, old, young, you know, nothing matters. It's, are you hiking? And are you being respectful? You know, like, that's the most important thing. Like, hey, let's just go enjoy nature and put in miles.
I have a question. I feel like if someone has been in the military, there is a very good chance that they would do well on a long trail because they've already got that discipline. They, like you said, the like-mindedness, all that. Do you think the same thing could work flipped? Do you think that if you've successfully completed a long-distance trail, you would do good in the military?
It depends upon the person, because there's a lot more structure and discipline in the military, and I could see the freedom, being 18, the freedom of through hiking and that lifestyle, and all of a sudden going into the military, that would be a harder transition.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to transition military to through hiker than through hiker to military.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think I could do it. That's why I'm wondering if if there's a general trend of, these skills all trade, because I'm like, I can't wake up early and I
waking up early and being on time are very important.
Yeah.
Have you tried to evangelize to any of your other military friends about like the virtues of through hiking?
Yeah, and so 2019, you guys know Warrior Expeditions?
Mm-hmm.
So 2019, I was already planning to do the PCT, had my permit, had my gear, and I applied. I was like, why not? And, shout out to Sean Gobin, amazing organization. They did give me, they give you gear, and I was like, man, I got a better tent than this, but you got to represent the sponsors and the brands, and so I did it, and it's, fully supported. So any military listeners, any veterans out there, look up Warrior Expeditions. Highly recommend you apply. They've got AT, PCT, CDT. They have a Bike Across America, and they have a paddle down the Mississippi that you start up in Minnesota and you finish all the way at the end, which I kind of want to do that at some point. I wouldn't be able to do it with them, but I just want to do it. That sounds like a pretty cool thing.
I want to rewind a little bit, because you mentioned that you had done the Kona Ironman. That's the most intense of the Ironman races, right? Don't you have to qualify for that one?
Yeah, so that's the World Championship. So I think the hardest one, and I've been out of that scene for a long time, but the hardest one used to be in the Canary Islands, Lanzarote, just with the elevation and the weather and everything. But yeah, I got in, I was really into marathons. Okay, what next? Then sprint triathlon, then half Ironman. And I was like, well, I want to do Ironman. So yeah, it's probably 3+ years of my life. Just it's like having a full-time job to do Ironman if you want to do well.
Yeah.
Like it's 30+ hours a week of training, and your off day, you're swimming 4,000 meters or 2,000 meters. That's your off day.
I always forget the particulars. It's a 2-mile swim, 150 miles on the bike, and a marathon.
So 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and 26.2 run.
Yeah, that's wild. It's crazy because the number for swimming is so much lower that it's like you'd think that number would be higher, but then when you think about it, that would be insanely hard. Yeah. But it's so funny, like going from 2.4 to 100 something.
I'm winded after just doing a couple laps at a pool.
So how that came about was I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a military guy, Navy guy, and a bunch of his friends. They're all sitting around discussing what's harder, this swim in Hawaii, which was 2.4 miles, or this bike ride that was right around 112, or a marathon. And none of them, all of them did one of them. Like nobody did all of them. And they're like, let's put them all together and see what happens. So that's kind of the origin story of Ironman.
Yeah.
Interesting. And the Kona one is in Hawaii? Yep,
Kona, Hawaii. It's pretty amazing if you're ever in Kona when that's going on. It's wild. It's a great day. Yeah.
I'm going to keep backtracking a little bit. Apologies. I want to know about the Navy culture in Coronado, because I was telling you before we got started that my best friend got married out there, and we went to a bar the day before, and like one of the bartenders said, like, this is the SEALs bar.
You went to McPee's.
Yeah. And like at a certain point, they're going to rip their shirts off and start like bartending and stuff like that.
Send me to this bar. Where is it?
McPee's.
Well, you either went to McPee's or Danny's. Danny's is more.
I think it's McPee's.
Yeah, it has a patio out back, and yeah.
Yeah, so just paint a picture for us for what the culture is like in an area with that many Navy men and women.
Well, one, I'd say it's very safe. My daughter lives there now, and I'm very happy about that because there's virtually no crime there. I mean, you might get your bicycle stolen, but, or DUIs are fairly common because there's a lot of bars there. No, I wouldn't say very common, but, I mean, it's a very safe community. It's made up of some very wealthy people, people that inherited their homes because their parents had bought them way back when they were less expensive, and then a lot of military. And that's pretty much it in that town. I mean, there's a lot of business, but you ever have the opportunity, chance to go, like Orange Avenue would blow your mind.
I'll write it down.
It is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I try to get back there a couple times a year. I still have a lot of good friends there. My daughter's living there, but you go walk your dog and it's just like out of a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, this is an island.
Yeah, it's an island just off San Diego.
Oh.
Have you ever been privy to any of the rowdiness at late night at one of these Navy bars?
I can neither confirm nor deny
That's
Okay,
a yes.
fair enough.
But they know me at McPee's, I'll just say that.
If someone were privy to something like that, what would be a cool story that they might have observed that would be entertaining for us to hear?
Well, I'll keep it PG, but I remember when Osama bin Laden was killed. I was at home. We were having like a steak dinner and a bunch of people at my house, and we had the TV on but muted, and all of a sudden that flashed, and all of us looked at each other like, we're going to McPee's. And it was shoulder to shoulder, and just everybody, I don't know if it's appropriate to say celebrating, but that's pretty much what they were doing. And CNN comes in, and nobody would talk to them.
Really?
Not one person would give them a soundbite. So that was a interesting memory from my days in Coronado.
Why is that?
Well, none of the people that were in that bar were there.
Yeah.
So
They don't want to speak out of turn.
You don't want to speak out of turn, and don't really trust the media because they're gonna, whatever you say, they're gonna spin it, and then all of a sudden you're all over the news, and they could misrepresent you.
Yeah.
Easily misrepresent you.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, back to trail life. So you said immediately, like something clicked. You regained that sense of purpose. Did you know right away that like thru-hiking was for you? Could you sense right away like, oh, this is something that I want to do all the time, forever?
I've got to be honest. When I finished the AT, I physically was done. I went back to Virginia Beach, and I just rode a beach cruiser around every day to get some blood flowing in my legs, a little active recovery. I was wrecked. I'm like, I'm never doing that again.
That's wild, especially someone with your fitness level.
Yeah.
Like that's common for anyone who finishes the AT, especially the northern part destroys people.
Yeah,
but like with you competing at Kona,
I wasn't eating the way I should. You're eating town food, and so that really changed for me in future hikes. Like I'm very specific on the amount of protein I get, collagen. I'm a big fan of collagen for recovery.
are you using like the powder?
Yeah, but on the trail I was using capsules because it's just easier. I'm not carrying a big jug.
Right.
But and how I found that was I was on the PCT, and I was talking to my daughter. I'm like, I'm not recovering. I'm falling apart. And she goes, I think you need to try collagen. She sent me some collagen, and I was like, wow, okay.
Interesting.
But I try to eat as clean as you can. I mean, I'm still gonna throw Cheetos in a burrito with some tuna, but it does taste delicious. But yeah, I just really try to watch nutrition when I'm out there, and I find that's a big thing for me.
Yeah. Did you notice a change pretty shortly after you started taking collagen?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it's psychosomatic, but I swear by it. Yeah.
I always think of collagen as being like hair, skin, and nails. Like that's how it's marketed to.
It's
me.
also protein, and
Is it?
it's also gonna. I think of it as lubing your ligaments and all that stuff. Maybe I could be wrong, but it works for me.
Yeah. Do you know how much you were taking?
No.
Okay.
Four capsules.
Yeah.
However many are in the 4 capsules.
Sure. So you mentioned changing your nutrition. In addition to adding collagen, was there any other changes that you've made?
Lighter gear, lighter pack.
Yeah.
Because I think carrying that pack so heavy early on really wore me down, and then I just didn't recover as much after that wear. Even when I got my pack lighter, I think I've just done a lot of wear and tear, and I hadn't recovered from it.
Yeah.
What kind of shoes did you start with?
Brooks.
Okay.
Shout out to Mike Vaughan. Thank you.
I didn't know. You've got some very cool shoes on today, so I didn't know if you'd have something.
These are Steger Mucklucks. We'll get to the Alaska part, but they're Alaska native style. This is made from moose hide. So all day long I'm in the snow, and my feet are never cold or wet. So these things work for what I'm doing. You wouldn't want to hike in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned one of the hard things about leaving the military is because it's such a change coming back to the real world, like you get PTSD, things like that. How in the hiking world, when you finish a trail, like you'll hear people get like the post-trail blues and really have a come down when they get off because not same, but similar.
No, it's very similar.
The environment changes. You're used to a structure and a routine and the same people being there, and then they're not. Did you find that it was easier for you because you had known what to expect from the military experience, or did you find that it was harder for you because it was like, oh shit, not this again?
No, I think it was easier for the military because there's a lot of things in life you experience that. So let's say you go on deployment, you're with the same people for 6 months or 9 months, and you have a mission, and then all of a sudden you come back, and all those people go off to their families, and post-deployment can be that way. Like, oh man, we just did something really cool for 6 months. I mean, it sucked, but it all sucked the same for all of us. And then I could say the same thing with training for a marathon. Your whole focus for however many months you're training, and then you run a marathon and you either accomplish your goal or maybe you don't, but then after that you're like, well, what's next? Well, for me it was, well, I'm gonna run the next one faster. I'm gonna run the next one fast. Same with Ironman. I'm very good at compartmentalizing what I'm doing, especially what I'm doing right now. My current job we'll get to, I'm just compartmentalized, and I've had 2 days off in 2.5 months because I'm just trying to make it work, and it's working. But I think that's just part of my personality. Like when I set my mind to something, I'm just gonna all right, that's my focus right there.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know, you mentioned your personality. I imagine, was a lot of that shaped by the military, or were you that way before you got into the Navy?
I think the military definitely helped out.
Yeah. So in addition to forming like strong discipline from your time at the Navy, what other traits do you think that the Navy gave you that lended itself well to thru-hiking?
Organization. Because I'd watch some people pack up and get ready, or you pull into camp and they would get ready for the evening, and it would just take them forever. And like I'm like shelter, water, food, and then I can rest. And because you never know when a storm's going to show up. If you don't have your tents set up, and then all your stuff gets wet. So I would say organization, and then I'd say organization. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Are you very tactical in your approach in terms of like, okay, I'm going to hike to this shelter tonight, I'm going to be here tomorrow, or did you have to learn to like relinquish a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely had to learn to relinquish a little bit because there's a lot of variables in the outdoors. But I would always come up with an A, B, and C plan. So like A, I want to go 30 miles. B, it doesn't work out. Okay, I'm going to go 25 miles. C, and this wasn't early on the AT. This is more my mindset now. And C, okay, weather pulls in, or you find some trail magic and you want to sit down and have a couple beers. Hey, that's plan C. Stay here.
How does the camaraderie compare between the trail and the military?
Very similar. So AT, I had a really great trail family. Like, we were tight. We still keep in touch a lot. Everybody's off. I mean, they were much younger, so now they're kind of getting into careers and, not able to go through hiking, having kids like you, Zach. It happens. Getting married, Chaunce. And then the second year, when I did PCT, I was kind of half trail family, half not. And that was because I started out with Warrior Expeditions. But after a week, I was like, hey guys, I want to go. I want to put in more miles. And so I met up with some people, and we kind of formed a very loose trail family. And but when I got to town, I would go straight to the VFW, and they would feed me. A lot of times they put me up at their house so I can get showers. So I would leave the trail family to go do that, part of Warrior Expeditions thing, and then come back to them. And we always had a plan. So I did probably half of it with people and then half of it solo.
Yeah. I know with Warrior Expeditions, isn't there the expectation that you guys are going to be hiking together the entire time?
No, that was like the first couple years.
Okay.
And they realized that didn't work.
Got it. Because Jabba, who I'm sure you've heard on the podcast before, was telling me I think he was in the inaugural season.
Yeah.
And he said he had a little bit of trouble with that expectation.
Yeah, because, you've got 5 people, 6 people. Everybody's not going to go the same pace. And everybody's not going to get along.
Yeah.
A lot of different experiences, different branches of the service. So everybody has different experiences from their time in. Not putting down anybody's experience in the military, but I just wanted to go off and hike, and I did see those guys. A couple of them every now and then, but I was kind of on my own little mission because I'd already done the AT, and I was like, I think I understand this a little bit better now.
Yeah.
Do you get along with certain branches more than others?
No, we all get along, but we definitely give each other shit.
Who's the Navy's biggest rival?
Well, Army.
Yeah.
I mean, Army-Navy game.
Sure.
So go Navy, beat Army.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to rectify here because you mentioned when you finished the AT, you were wrecked. You thought you'd be done with hiking, and then the next year you're on the PCT. Bridge that gap for me.
Yeah, so I think I spent about 6 weeks in Virginia Beach just trying to figure out what I was going to do. Didn't have a vehicle, had a bike, and just kind of riding around, going to the coffee shop in the morning, trying to figure out. And a thru-hiker posted on maybe your page and said, hey, there's some job openings in Colorado. And it was to be a lifeguard at a place over the mountain, and free room and board, 3 meals so you got a room, you got 3 meals a day, get to snowboard almost every other day. And I was like, that's what I'm gonna go do. And everybody's like, you've lost your mind. I was like, they're like, you don't know anybody in Colorado. I was like, I'll figure it out. So I did that, and then while I was there, I was like, I'm gonna go do the PCT. And so that's when I applied and got my permit.
Yeah. Were you addicted to like the unconventional lifestyle at that point? Because you said like after you'd finished your time at the Navy that you went into government contracting, which seems like the logical next step. I'm sure a lot of people do that. Was it just you were drawn to more of like the free flowing lifestyle?
It definitely, something changed in my brain on the AT of like, I don't need to wear a suit every day. I don't need to go to Washington, D.C. for meetings. I don't need to own the best car. I don't need a giant house. I can just take all that stress away. And so that's what I did. And I kind of there's a lot of people thought I'd kind of lost it. And they're like, hey, you really checked out. I wasn't on the merry-go-round anymore. I was kind of doing my own thing.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Chaunce.
No, you go ahead.
How do we get from Colorado to the PCT?
Same question.
So I flew out to California. My daughter was living in LA. And then I hung out with her for a couple days, got my gear ready, and then she drove me down to the start and dropped me off.
Was she more comfortable with the second trail, or was she like, Dad lost his mind on the last one? What's this going to do?
I think everybody was a little more like, oh, you're really into this. And I was like, yeah, I am. And she's like, hey, if you're happy, go do it. So she's a big supporter, yeah.
Cool.
And I want to mention my son, too. He's a big supporter as well.
Yeah. At what point did you decide that you wanted to do the PCT? Because
it was probably November.
Okay.
So I probably got to Colorado I finished the trail in September, probably got to Colorado in October, and by Thanksgiving I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I applied and got the permit.
It's interesting that someone that went into the Navy being like, yeah, beaches, is now like sticking to the mountains.
My whole life is mountains now.
Yeah.
I really miss surfing. So like what I like to do I kind of work, it's not seasonal anymore. This is a full-time job, but I get 2 months off a year. So I kind of plan vacations and go do fun things. Yeah.
Okay, so from Texas, moved to Florida, Coronado, a lot of warm weather places. You hiked the PCT in 2019, notoriously a high snow year.
Yeah.
What was it like adjusting to that?
So I was the guy on the trail that got frostbite. And I posted a picture of my toe, and it kind of went viral among the PCT hikers, like, oh my God, Ginger Ballz toe. And so like, yeah.
Was this in the Sierra?
Sierra, yeah. So I made a couple of tactical mistakes. So we went in the Sierra. So I back with my trail family, like, let's go. And I remember walking in, and there was a guy laying on a rock, and he's like, don't go in, you'll die. And we're like, whatever, everybody's going to tell you, it's worse than it is. And we just post hold for, it had to be 6 or 7 days to get to Kearsarge Pass. And we did, what's the rough one where you zigzag up and then you go across the ice fall?
Forester?
Forester.
Yeah.
So there was no trail. So we just went up a mountain, and then we got to Forester and went across that ice fall. And then the backside, I mean, I'm looking at it now, like there's Abbey danger. But I didn't know anything about that. Somehow we got out of there, and my toe was really hurt. Oh, and I lost the trail family because I wanted to go do Whitney, and they're like, "You're insane. It's snow covered." I'm like, "I'm doing Whitney." So Whitney was there was no trail, so I was kick stepping with my not crampons, but micro spikes, and I'd swap to boots for the Sierra, which I'd never have done. I always wear trail runners. They were a little too tight on my toes. The micro spikes, the way it went over my big toe, was pinching some blood. And then going up Whitney, I was kick stepping, and so I thought I broke my toe because it was all black, and I was like, I broke my toe. But I did get up to Whitney. I signed the logbook, and then like 2 days later, I ran a trail family. Like, one of the people from the trail family made up. He's like, I saw your name in the trail book. I'm like, yeah, that was insane. I was all by myself up there, like wow. Snow. And so we went out Kearsarge Pass. I go to a hotel, big old black blister on my toe. So I, take some Jack Daniels and sanitize it, and a needle and a thread, and drain it. That's kind of what you do. That's what I was taught to do anyway. And patched it back up. I was like, I've got a broken toe. I'll be all right. And so I went back in, and on the way in, I passed my trail family, and they're like, we're not going in, big storm's coming. I'm like, I got this. So I drop in, and I get about 5 miles in, and the storm is, it's a blizzard, and it's cold. Like 0. And so I just half set up my tent and climb in, put on all my clothes. I couldn't get my stove to start. All my water was frozen. And this was like 9 in the morning. So I just suffered all night. And like 6 in the morning, I look out and it's still blizzard. I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like, this is not going to go well for me. So I hiked the 5 miles back up. And then, there's like a 13-mile graded road to get down to Lone Pine. And as soon as I came out, there was a government vehicle moving rocks off the road. And I ran up. I'm like, I really need some help. And he's like, get in. You look horrible. And he took me down. I'm sitting at the little gas station, having a Dr. Pepper or a beer or whatever, and I take my shoe off, and this old timer walks by and goes, you got frostbite. And I was like, no, I think it's just broken. He's like, that's frostbite. So I was like, okay, tactical decision. I'm going to get off trail. So I went down to L.A., see it. My daughter was living there, went to see a doctor, and he said, this is textbook frostbite. Like, if I took a picture of this and put it in a medical book, and he said, if you'd stayed in there, you would have lost your big toe and, like, part of my other toe.
Oh, wow.
And so I spent 3 weeks on my daughter's couch, just miserable, and then healed up enough and went back, and I skipped like 225 miles of the Sierra and got back on trail because there was no snow, like past Mammoth, and caught up to my trail family, and we finished the day before trail days, or PCT days. Mm-hmm. And all of them, I didn't have my passport on me. All of them hiked in and got a ride to trail days. And I'm like, I'll see you there. And they're like, no way. And so I basically, that last 30 miles of town, I was just moving. Like, I got to get there. And it's probably 6 hitchhikes. And I show up.
Out of Hearts Pass?
Hearts Pass.
Wow.
And I show up at trail days like 6 p.m. and they're like, no way, how'd you get here? I'm like, it's a story, but I'm here. So we all finished the day of trail days, but then I had to go back and do the 225, which it was pretty nice because I went back into Kearsarge and I have pictures of when we first went in to when I went or came out, and it was looked completely different. Like big snow, I'm like in the snow like up above my knees, and then when I went back in, it was like rock and beautiful.
Wow.
Can you completely recover from frostbite?
Not really. So I think I got frost nip on my fingers and frost nip on some of the outer toes, and then the frostbite. So you can't see anything. My toenail's not the best looking, but whatever.
I was gonna be before you asked that. I was gonna ask him what his toe looks like.
You don't want to see it. It's just the toenail doesn't grow back correctly. So
yeah.
But when I'm working here, Colorado or Alaska, and as soon as it drops below 0, my fingers and my toes are, like if I'm out working about an hour, I got to run in, and it only takes like 5 minutes, and then I go back out and I'm fine. But that's residual from that PCT hike.
Yeah. So what would you have done differently, knowing what you know now?
I wouldn't have swapped to boots or kept my trail runners. I wouldn't have used that brand of micro spikes. And I just remember there was times where my shoes were so frozen in the morning, I would have to beat on them, or my boots, to beat on them just to get my foot in.
Yeah.
So I probably would have slept with them underneath me, to keep them a little bit warmer. But yeah, that was all my fault.
Was it because the boots were less comfortable was the issue, or
they were tighter.
Yeah.
And
So
so
it's
a
just
lot of
restricting.
restricting the blood flow,
Yeah.
and then you got a toe with less blood flow and all that extreme cold, you're gonna get frostbite.
What was the date that you entered in the Sierra?
Somebody asked me that the other day. So I started May 2nd or 3rd. I want to say it was like a month in, so early June.
Okay. Damn, you cruised the desert.
And that was the worst year for snow up until I think last year. I think last year was worse.
Yeah.
Or equal, but yeah, it'd been pretty mild the years before, but then that year it just dumped. But I mean, I got some amazing pictures. Like,
I'm sure.
yeah, it was good.
How does being stuck in a blizzard by yourself in the Sierra compare to like some of the scarier moments that you encountered in your military experience?
Very different. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah.
Different.
Are you able to keep your cool the entire time, or are you freaking out at all?
No, I was keeping my cool. I was like, you got to wait this out. It's dark. That's the dumb move, is to hike out in the dark. The dumb move was going in. The dumber move is to try to hike out in the dark and get lost, and then they find your body. So I was like, I'm gonna stay put. I know how to get out from here if I can see. And then as soon as the sun came up, I was just like going straight up. Get up there.
What are you doing when it's blizzarding and your tent is getting covered in snow? Like, are you having to get out every now and then and like get the snow off so it doesn't collapse it? And then is it going in front of the door and you're just like, oh, the snow level's going up around my door? Like, how do you mitigate the snow coming in during a blizzard, staying warm and sheltered in place, and not having it start piling up on top of you?
Yeah, so I had found a place in some trees because I figured that provided me some protection. So, and I could only get like, I think I had a single person tent on. I did. I had a single person tent on that hike, and I think I only got like one little piece to where it was holding up, and the rest was just laying down. So all night, I mean, I didn't really sleep. So every 30 minutes or so, I'm just going like, brushing my tent from the inside, and that just kept it off me. So yeah, one of the scarier times on the trail, but I own that. That was my mistake. Yeah.
Did you ever consider throwing in the towel?
No, I'm a little too hard-headed for that.
Even after the frostbite?
I was like, no, I'm going. Yeah, even my daughter's like, okay, you don't have to. That was the conversation. Dad, you don't have to finish. I'm like, oh no, I have to finish.
Yeah. Was it fun coming back and seeing this year at a completely different?
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, because I caught it, also when all the tourists are going through around the John Muir Trail. So, I caught up with a bunch of them. And fun story there, I get to a camp, and there's like one camp spot left, and I'm like, all right, beautiful next to a river, but it's just filled. And I see this group, and they're interested in me because I'm a thru-hiker, and I'm telling my stories. And I'm like, they have the bougiest gear. They're eating the bougiest meals. So I'm like, you guys must be from Hollywood. And they're like, we are. And so I kind of nicknamed them Hollywood trail names, and they thought that was fun. And we exchanged Instagram and all this to keep in touch. And then when I got out, I realized it was the band Bad Religion. It wasn't all of them, but it was like the manager and the singer and all this. And I reached back out. I'm like, dude, you guys never told me you were Bad Religion. I'm like, yeah, we're in the woods. We didn't want to talk about that. And so he's always told me, he's like, hey, if you ever come to a show, you got backstage passes. But
that's awesome.
I've never been around when they're in concert. So
What kind of trail names were they?
it was like West Hollywood. I can't remember, but yeah, I was like, you guys are the bougiest hikers I've ever seen. But they were only in for 3 days.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of money. So
Yeah.
all their gear was top notch, brand new tents, and yeah.
Play us a ditty. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said that you're beat up when you finished the AT. Obviously, this sounds potentially worse with frostbite. I guess you'd recovered at this point.
I'd recovered. My feet were fine.
Yeah. So at what point did you know that you wanted to complete the Triple Crown?
While I was on the PCT. I was like, that's next. So I just finished that, came back to Colorado, started teaching ski and snowboard at Winter Park, and then left to go do the CDT. And that was COVID year. So everything kind of shut down, and I left. All right, backtrack here. So my plan that year, and there's about 7 of us, and I don't remember any of the other guys and girls, but I was going to do calendar year Triple Crown. So I left here like February 15th and went down and started the AT. And I tell you what, the Smokies, I was post-holing through deep snow, but there was a trail. Like you could see it cut through the trees. And it was cold. But I had the Smokies all to myself, which you never have that. It's the most visited park in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I love that aspect of it. And then, I'm getting emails, get off the trail, you're being selfish. We're shutting down the huts. And I'm like, well, I don't use them anyway, so I'm fine. Then when I got to Shenandoah, they had said you can only hike during the day because COVID, I guess, doesn't come out at night or opposite of that, whatever. So, but that's 140 miles of stretch. So I guess I can't get in trouble for this now, but so what I did is I would hike all day, and I'd see the park rangers like, you're getting out here tonight, right? And, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I would go about a quarter mile off trail and camp, and then get back on trail the next morning, and I'd see the park. And they're like, hey, I said, a buddy of mine drove me in this morning. And they're like, okay. After day 3, they're like, they knew what I was doing. Yeah. They were fine with it.
Yeah.
So then I get to West Virginia, and as I'm coming down the trail, I get another email. We don't have to talk about from who, but it says, if you're on the AT, your through hike doesn't count. And I was like, well, I don't care. Like, I don't need you to tell me if I hike the AT, I hike the AT. I don't need a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. But I was like, you know what? I'm tired of all this. I'm going to go hike the CDT. And so I went down and hiked the CDT. And
was it still your intention to do the calendar year triple and just jump around?
It was until halfway through the CDT. I'm like, I'm just going to finish this one.
Yeah.
That was a lot to bite off.
Yeah.
Because CDT had a lot of snow as well, which I made it through. But it's just rough when you don't have a trail and you're just zigzagging and, post-holing. It's exhausting. But the really cool thing about CDT was I really didn't see anybody. And I hiked solo. That was probably the most remote I've ever been in my life hiking.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the San Juans and then knapsack coal up in the winds. I've got to go back and do those again. It was so beautiful. Yeah.
We've talked to people who did hikes during COVID and gotten the vibe of like, what was it like when you got off trail? Like, what was it like when it happened and all that? But I don't know if we've talked to someone who's been on 2 of the big trails during that time.
Yeah, maybe not.
What was the difference from the reactions you were getting on the AT versus the reactions you were getting on the CDT?
So the reaction on the AT from the other hikers, because there's a lot of like day hikers out there.
Open-ended question.
They loved it. Now, some people that may manage had different opinions and expressed them very negatively on social media. And then, people get that social media contagion of, oh yeah, that's bad, and then pile on. And I was like, I'm tired of this. So I went down the CT, completely different vibe. A lot of the hostels were shut down, but as long as I could resupply either through the mail or in town, I was fine. Did require a lot more longer carries for food though. 7 to 10 days and a couple stretches.
Oh, wow.
Which that walking out of town with 10 days of food is, it's like I just want to eat all of it, so I have a lighter pack. But, yeah.
Speaking of a lighter pack, so you started off with a 45-pound pack on the AT, then you got a little bit lighter on the PCT, but you were still constrained because you're using Warrior Expedition stuff. At this point, you obviously learned the value of having a lighter pack. What does your big 3 look like? Yeah,
so tent, definitely Z-Packs duplex. I probably have 4,000 to 5,000 miles on my duplex, and it's still a great tent. I sleep so well in it, and it keeps you dry. You're not going to get water coming in. It's got that high level. And then actually I found my backpack through Warrior Expeditions. They were using
the Granite Gear?
Granite Gear.
Yeah. And
so, Rob at Granite Gear has always taken care of me. He's a great dude. I actually tested the 3rd version of.
Is it the Crown?
Crown.
Yeah.
So when I did the Hayduke, was it Hayduke? Yeah, I think it was a Hayduke. Yeah, it was. They sent me an unmarked Crown 3 that wasn't in production yet, and I tested it out on the Hayduke. And if that thing can survive the Hayduke, that thing can survive anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love Granite gear. I mean, you can go lighter, but for being solid and going to last you, I think Granite gear Crown 3 is a great pack.
Yeah, and I'm sure you want something heavier duty when you're carrying 10 days worth of food too.
Yeah. So yeah, I think a lighter pack not going to handle 10 days of food. So you got to take that into account. So maybe my pack's a pound lighter or a pound heavier, but I can carry 20 more pounds of food or water if you need it.
That's a lot of collagen.
Yeah, a lot of collagen.
You had mentioned that being in the military helped with organization and like efficiency and those things when translating it to hiking. How do you pack your Granite gear pack? Like, what order does your stuff go in? How do you organize it?
That's a good one. I use a lot of bags,
Stuff sacks.
tough sacks, just to keep everything organized. But bottom of the pack is going to be, some heavier stuff that I don't need right away. Then my sleeping bag, just so it's not going to get wet if I'm putting my pack down. But that's in a stuff sack as well. And then I'm going to go probably extra clothes and miscellaneous toiletries or whatever, and then food on top.
I'm curious to know, because you mentioned going through the Smokies basically by yourself in very snowy terrain. How does a snowy Smokies compare to the snowy Sierra?
Less altitude. So you're not, if you're not used to the altitude when you get up in the Sierra, you're going to feel it. Especially Whitney's 14. So yeah, I think the difference is the altitude, and the Sierra cement, as it's called. The snow is a lot damper, so it's going to be more like cement and harder to walk through than East Coast snow.
Really? I would think the East Coast snow would be damper because it's more humid.
For me, it was more icy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was icy when I went through, but it wasn't like snowy.
Yeah, that was kind of my concern in some sections, was like ice on the East Coast, and then Sierra, it was just dense, which makes it a little more difficult to walk.
Yeah.
Which out here, it's like powder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and we'll get to my current job and what
wait.
I've learned here.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
And so I guess this kind of segues a little bit, but obviously a high snow year in the Sierra in 19 and then 20, you're starting early for the calendar year triple, and then you get out to the CDT where it's still very snowy. Are you finding that you love hiking in snow or just being in snow?
Yeah, I'm finding I can survive in it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's the important part.
Sure.
Like, okay, it's not going to kill me. Almost lost a toe, didn't lose a toe. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Do you like hiking in snow?
I don't mind it. I work every day in snow all year.
That's not a yes. You didn't say yes.
No, I do, because you're gonna find less people out there.
Okay.
So a little more solitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more like survival.
Got it.
Instead of just like walking down a trail on a nice sunny day.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I obviously very much want to get to the subject that we keep alluding to, but
We got 3 more though.
yeah, there's a little bit more here. And if any like standout stories you want to tell us from any of the Triple Crown trails that you've done?
I mean, I covered the frostbite, covered my not being over prepared for the AT and learning, a hard lesson there. I think that's the big thing, is like I learned a hard lesson, and that, it changes the way I approach a thru hike, and definitely helps me, because I get better every time. The beauty and solitude of the CDT was some of my favorite, and the animals. There's a lot, not as many people, so I saw a lot more animals. A little scary going through Bob Marshall. Bob Marshall Wilderness has the highest concentration of grizzlies, and I remember one night I'd run into a Peruvian sheep herder. I don't know if they're up there, but they get these Peruvians on horses that are grazing sheep all over, BLM land.
Are they actually from Peru? Or
Yeah.
are they just,
they're
like bringing them in from Peru?
Got the big hat. It's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, I talked to him for a little bit. And so I talked to one, and I was like, all right, I'm going to hike a couple more miles in camp. And this is in Bob Marsh, or somewhere up there where grizzlies were. In the middle of the night, I heard what sounded like a murder. Something being murdered. And I sit up and I'm like, I'm terrified right now. Got my bear spray, like, what's going on? And then I run into the same sheep herders the next day. I'm like, what happened? And he's like, wolves. They usually get one sheep almost every night. They get like one on the edge. And so I was listening to a sheep just getting devoured by wolves.
Wow.
And I was like, and then, you're walking down the trail and you'll see giant steaming piles of grizzly poop. And like they're there, but they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be messed with.
So you didn't see any grizzlies?
I saw a couple from a distance, far enough. I had my bear spray out, like, okay, but I was never like, oh, this is bad. But for days you just see they'd love to poop on the trail, and so that was. But we got grizzlies up in Alaska too, so
yeah.
Mm. Wow.
Okay. Tell us about the Hayduke.
Hayduke. All right, this is a good story. The reason I chose Hayduke, a buddy of mine from the military had sent me the Figure It Out on the Hayduke video on Netflix, and I watched that, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. So I was teaching ski and snowboard here in Winter Park, and I decided I want to be a whitewater raft guide. So I applied. I won't mention this company's name. So I applied, and it went well, and they're like, you're really overqualified. Why do you want to do this? I'm like, well, I've never been a whitewater raft guide. I want to learn this skill set, get swiftwater rescue and just all this other stuff. And basically they told me they weren't hiring me because I'm too old, and that kind of pissed me off.
I don't think they're allowed to do that.
Well, the way
how'd they word it?
They worded it enough that yeah.
I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying naughty them.
No, yeah, naughty them, and they are here in Colorado in the South. I'll just leave it at that. So I was just mad. I'm like, I can't believe that I got turned down, because I will swim circles around anybody they have on their. I don't know how to whitewater raft, but physically, let's go. I'll learn. So I was like, I'm gonna go hike the hardest trail in America, Hayduke, and so yeah, that's what I did. So Granite Gear was like, hey, you want to test a pack for us? I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. And are you doing this with a hiking partner, or is this solo?
Nope, solo. One of the tougher trails, the toughest trail I've done.
Yeah.
It's shorter, it's 800 miles, but it is, you better be ready. Like, don't make that your first thru hike. You'll never do another thru hike.
Yeah. And I know, obviously, the Hayduke is kind of a choose-your-own-adventure route.
It is. Most of it is, like, here's the GPS. I had GPS waypoints. But you'll walk past. So a lot of it's climbing down into
Canyons.
Canyons. Thanks, Zach. But to find the entrance to the canyon, you're looking like 300 feet down, 200 feet down. Like, how do I get down there? Or there's this little hole you kind of shimmy through, and all of a sudden it's nice and easy. But to find, I had a lot of backtracking. Like, one day I was stuck in a canyon for 6 hours. I couldn't find my way out. And I'm like, I know it's right here somewhere. And I'm walking back and forth, starting to run out of water. And then, just like the movie says, you figure it out. Very challenging in that respect. And then you either have a lot of clean, fresh water, and you're walking through it for 25 miles, or you have no water. And you're doing big carries. I drank the worst water in my life on that trail.
Yeah.
Just out of necessity, like straining it through a clean sock. Then, using your everything you have, a neckerchief, and and it's still dirt brown, and it tastes like dirt, but it's clean. It's been filtered.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple spots where it's just like, this seems impossible.
Yeah. When you're navigating in and out of canyons, is the GPS track accurate at all? Like, is it more suggestive, or?
So there's a book, and it's a very hard. You can't hike that trail with this book, because it's like, in 200 feet you will see a cactus, and then you're gonna see a rope, and you're gonna climb down, and then 400 feet, and it's just like, it's impossible. I found it impossible to follow. And then, there's a lot of aspects, like you get to the bottom you come in Grand Canyon down Nankoweap, which that in itself is an amazing trail. And I'm coming down, I think it's probably 14 miles, and I'm coming down to a beach on the Grand Canyon, and I see rafters there. And so I just start, and I can tell they're packing up and getting ready to leave. They'd spent the night on this beach. And so I realized the trail wasn't going to get me there in time. So I just start following these deer trails through bush, just like, okay, boom. And I come busting out looking like a wild man. And they're like, where did you come from? And I'm like, I'll tell you the story. I need to ride across the river. And they're like, all right. So they put me on the bow of the boat and gave me a beer and just kept hitting these rapids and just cleaning me off. And then they took me a mile or two down and dropped me off on the beach. And they're like, good luck. You're insane being out here by yourself. But I had to hitchhike twice on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a beautiful trail. There's parts of that I want to go back. Like I could take somebody on a 3-day and you'd feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, just like, because people just don't go on parts of these trails.
Yeah. I know you had a story with dropping your pack down in one of the canyons.
Yeah. So, and most of the canyons, as you're going, there's all these washouts where, a river had come through, and, a lot of them are like 3 feet, 6 feet, maybe 12 feet. And I got to one and it was like maybe 10 feet. I'm like, okay, I can jump down this. And so I lowered my pack without even looking. And as I'm starting to go down, there's all these boulders underneath it. And I'm like, if I jump down there, I'm going to break my ankle. I'm like, let me find another way. So probably for an hour, I had my GPS, had my cell phone. And so for an hour and a half, I'm walking the canyon ridges trying to find a way. And I was just like, I can't find a way to get down this. So I saw a tree that was probably 5 feet off the canyon wall, and it's probably 8 inches or 10 inches in diameter. And I'm like, I'm going. So I just leapt and grabbed onto that tree, and it started bending over. I'm like, this is bad. And then it just kind of came back, and it was still. So I just shimmied down, and I had scratches all over my arms, my legs, but I had my pack. So cleaned myself up a little bit, and I was like, all right, let's go. But yeah, you run into a lot of those situations that you just look at it like, this is impossible. There's no way. And you just got to stop, take a breath. Don't be in a hurry. Try to think it through, and then it's crazy. You figure it out. And even one of the big stories on that show figured out, or that movie, is Fat Man's Misery. And I'd watched that section 10 times. I'm like, I'm not going to mess up Fat Man's Misery.
What's to mess up?
You can't find it.
Oh.
And so you're just lost in this canyon, and you're climbing up top. Nope, not it. Climbing up top, walking down a river, walking back. And sure enough, I made all the same mistakes. And then I finally found it, and I was like, man, it was right in front of me. It's just not obvious a lot of times. So if I did it again, though, I'd be fine.
Yeah, sure. Do you have a sat communicator when you're doing this?
Just Garmin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have that on the PCT, CDT as well?
No. I waited until CDT I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I carry one now. It's just smarter.
When you're trapped in a blizzard in the Sierra, are you wishing you had a safety net?
Yeah. Yeah. But, your cell phone works that way too.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have service, you can get an SOS call out. Or at least, I don't know if it's a beacon or a call, but you have the ability to do that.
That's crazy.
And I'm sure the Superior Hiking Trail feels like a cakewalk compared to the Hayduke.
Oh, it was so easy. It's a beautiful trail. I did it in September of whatever year, and on the left all the leaves are the brightest colors as they're changing. On the right, you've got the blue of Lake Superior, and some of the friendliest people up there in Minnesota. A little story about that. I had flown into Minneapolis, and you take a shuttle up, and they get you about 10 miles from the start. So I get off, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to hitchhike. And this friendly old lady was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm hiking this trail. She goes, well, how are you getting there? I'm like, I'm going to hitchhike. No, sweetie, come here. So she takes me, and she takes a picture of me at the start. And so probably 4 days later, you hike out of the hills. I'm not going to call them mountains, they're hills. Down into the town of Duluth. And you walk along the boardwalk, and you're in town. And some guy rides up on his bike. He's like, hey, Ben from Alaska. And I was like, okay, I've never been to this part of the world. Like, what's going on? And she had posted it on a Minnesota hiking page. And so for the rest of the trail, especially on weekends, I'd run into people like, Ben from Alaska. So that's like Minnesota nice.
Yeah.
But that trail, I would recommend it to anybody that wants to do a thru hike. Go do that 300 miles. There's lots of campsites, lots of water. It's not as strenuous, and you can dial in your pack, dial in your food, and figure out if you want to do a thru hike. But I think that trail is the one. Like, if you think you want to do a long thru hike, do a Superior Hiking Trail.
Yeah. It's on my list as well. Would you
Yeah.
recommend it in September for the
Yes.
foliage?
So no mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Foliage is changing. So I guess mosquitoes are bad up there, but I didn't have that at all. And the temps were super mild. Like never got too hot, never got too cold. I mean, I picked the right time.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of elevation gain? I would think it'd be pretty flat.
Towards the end, you're doing a lot of ski resorts, like little mom and pop ski resorts, like very tiny, nothing like what we have here in Colorado. But for a while there, it's like, well, top of another ski resort, almost like Vermont Long Trail, very similar to that, but pretty easy on elevation gain.
How long did it take you? Oh, sorry.
I think it's 300 miles. I think 2 weeks
Okay.
or 2.5 weeks. It was quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I interrupted your question.
I
Chaunce.
was just going to say that when I think of Minnesota, my brain never thinks that there's ski resorts there.
Yeah.
So it's like surprising to think about.
I mean, they're hills,
Yeah.
especially compared to Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the long trail.
Yeah, so I flew from Minnesota to Boston, and then I met Scrapbook, the same guy who I started the AT with, and we went and knocked out the long trail. And, of course, everybody on the AT, it's like, wait till you get past the north. Oh, the north. I mean, there's some challenging parts of climbing on some granite and all that, but it was beautiful. Got a little cold towards the end, but that was, again, probably 2.5 weeks or something. But yeah, I just wanted to finish it because I'd already done half of it, but we did the whole thing. We didn't start where the AT ends and it picks up. We just did the whole Vermont Long Trail.
It sounds like you might have taken a couple tumbles. You might have fallen once or twice or 30 plus times.
Did you stalk my Instagram or something?
Just coming to the interview prepared.
Yeah, you did. I don't know who you talked to. So yeah, I fell twice every single day. And if one day I didn't fall twice, I fell once. I fell 3 the other day. Like, I don't know what it was. It's those roots and rocks and mud. I think I'm pretty good at picking up my feet, but I'd take a big fall and Scrapbook like, oh, old man's down. He's not going to make it. And I'd pop up like, oh, I'm fine. Bloody knees, hands. So I never got injured, but yeah, I fell every day.
Yeah. I remember I was falling nonstop on the long trail, and then I think it was like Stowe or somewhere with an outfitter. I grabbed a new pair of Lone Peaks, and getting the fresh tread just made all the difference for me.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but that trail was trying to kick my butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
So it was just him and I the whole time, and we had a great time.
Did you go north or south?
North.
Okay. If you could do it again, would you go north or south?
Yeah, I pretty much all my hikes have been north or
Yeah.
south to north. I've always been a Nobo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We get to go there. Chaunce, kick us off.
Dog mushing. This is great. I want to know all about this. I guess let's start from the beginning. How did you get tuned into like going from hiking and those sort of things to I could go to Alaska and do dog mushing? Like that feels like a big jump to go from one thought.
I had finished the Hayduke, and my plan was to do Pacific Northwest Trail. Those were my 2 hikes for that summer. And there's too much snow on the Pacific Northwest Trail, so I had time to like burn. I was like, I need to let this snow melt. So a buddy of mine had a contract in North Dakota, building a mountain bike trail right next to Roosevelt National Park. Park. And he calls me up. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm waiting for snow to melt." He's like, I need somebody to help me build mountain bike trails." I'm like, "I've never done that." He's like, "Come up. You get a free room, free food, and I'm gonna pay you X number of dollars." And I was like, for 3 weeks. And I was like, "All right, I'll do that." That was a lot of work. He had like the excavator, and I have the chainsaw, and I'm pounding dirt and creating all these berms. It's like 100 degrees. I'm like, man, this is good money, but man, this kind of sucks. And so shout out to anybody that does that for a living, or trail maintenance as well. It's kind of similar. I get a text that says, "Hey, do you want to be a dog musher in Alaska on a remote glacier?" And it's 100 degrees. I'm sweating, got my shirt off, and I'm like, yeah, I do. So the guy I work for, and we'll talk about him, he had just started this glacier operation in the summertime. It's up at 5,000 feet. You build out a dog camp, and helicopters fly guests in, and you mush them around the glacier, and they get to meet the dogs. So They were short one person. I knew a girl that was up there, and she's like, I think I know a guy crazy enough to do this. And I was like, I could always hike the Pacific Northwest Trail. Let me give this a shot. Flew up there, and, I didn't know anything. I basically was I was a handler. I was picking up dog poop and putting harnesses on dogs and trying to figure everything out. But I told the guy I worked for, I said, I want to learn to be a dog musher. And he's like, we'll get you there. And probably 3-4 weeks later, I was running tours.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I was running great tours, but I was running tours.
Are these dogs, like, in their off time, like pets, or are they strictly business?
That's a great question, and I would love for you to come out to the kennel.
Please.
Because So what I'm doing now is I'm running an operation here in Colorado called Colorado Dog Sledding. So I have 30 dogs at the kennel. So the Alaskan Husky, all it wants to do is run. It's the analogy I like to give is a dog that you throw the ball all day and you're like, my arm is tired. I'm tired of doing this. They won't chase a ball, but they want to run. Like, that's all they want to do. So when they're done running, all they want is love. They are the friendliest dogs you've ever seen.
Like heaven.
and it's almost all the guests are shocked that a working dog with that intensity for running can flip a switch and be like, just love on me. And I love seeing that during tours because I tell people that. I'm like, you just wait. And most of the time, guests don't talk about the dog sledding. They talk about the dogs when they're leaving. And a lot of our reviews are like that too. So I did that for a summer, learned to be a tour musher, driving a big heavy sled with guests and giving a tour. And that's when I went hike Superior Hike and Trail, Long Trail after that. And then I went back to Winter Park to teach. So the guy I work for, his name is Dallas Seavey. His grandfather helped start a race called Iditarod 53 years ago. So Iditarod is a 1,049-mile race. Takes about 8 or 9 days to win. March 1st will be the 53rd running. So to give you an idea of what 1,049 miles is, from my dog yard up in Silverthorne, I would have to run the dogs all the way down to Houston.
Wow.
And this is in the backcountry of Alaska, not down I-70 to whatever you take to Houston. Dallas's father, he is 65 now. He's racing this year for his 28th time. His father has won 3 times.
Wow.
Has come in second twice, has come in third twice, and he's the oldest to ever win at 56.
Wow.
And then Dallas, who I work for, youngest to ever finish the race at age 18, youngest to win at 25. And last March, he got his 6th win, making him the all-time wins leader. So it's kind of a dynasty up there. For 6 years, either Dallas or his dad won the race.
What does it take to win one of these races? You've got the best dogs. You've got the best route. What does it take? I think I've never run the race. I've never won, obviously. So that's a question for somebody that has won the race. But I think from our perspective, it's the dogs. We do our own breeding at the kennel very selectively. We select the male, the female that we think will produce champion Iditarod sled dogs. We don't sell our dogs to anybody. We're not a puppy mill. The only dogs we interbreed with are Dallas's father's kennel and our kennel, Dallas's kennel. Usually do a couple a year just to try to keep it going so Dallas can continue racing and winning. But Dallas is kind of a mad scientist. I call him that all the time to his face because he comes up with things that help him gain a competitive edge. And I'm like, man, I never would have thought of that. So it's a lot of strategic planning, a lot of logistics, and him and his father have figured it out. Wow.
How do you teach a dog to work in a team environment like that? How do you get the dog to behave and do what it needs to do?
So every dog has its own personality. So I've got 30 personalities in the dog yard up in Silverthorne. And I know all these dogs. I've worked with them all for 4 years. We have one that's a year and a half, but I was there when she was born. But all the other dogs I've worked with summer and winter for the past 4 years. But what we do is when you have a litter of puppies, as soon as their eyes are open, they become part of the tour. Guests are holding them. That's the socialization. So that makes them a better sled dog in their adult life because they've been around people their whole lives and they've never been hurt by people. So they associate us humans with love and affection and food and everything. Then around 6 to 9 months, you want to harness break them. I know that sounds harsh, but it's not. You put a harness on them for the first time and they hate it. They're like, what is this? You take 2 really good lead dogs and put them in the front of the team that are going to listen to you, older dogs. And you put these yearlings behind them and you go take them for a mile. And they're alligator rolling and they're trying to turn around and they're just all over the place. They're little monkeys. And you just keep doing that. And so for that first year, they're called yearlings. And you gradually increase the mileage every other day till by the end of the season they're doing about 25 or 30 every other day. And then last year they'll do a 200-mile race. And that's kind of their graduation exercise. So now they're sled dogs. And now they can be looked at for the future race team.
When you have all the dogs in the harnesses in their little cute rows, how can you tell if like one in the back or the middle is starting to get tired? Because you can't just stop running if everyone else around you is running and you're tied in.
No, they can. So if a dog gets tired or doesn't want to run or wants to goof off, you'll see the line get slack a little bit, the tug line. And when you see that, you just call their name and they'll get back to work. But if they continue to do that, then it's like, okay, maybe something's going on. Let me stop the team. We go talk to the dog, give them some positive affirmation. Usually that works. Usually just calling their name works.
Yeah.
Because it's usually more goofing off rather than being tired. These dogs. So I finished the Iditarod last year. I was there in Nome. Dallas comes in, 6 win. I'm there to help catch the dogs. Dallas is dehydrated, malnourished, sunburnt, windburnt. You know, the race is called the toughest endurance race in the world, but that's on the human, not the dogs. These dogs were still jumping in their harness and barking like, why are we stopping? Let's go. And I was just like, these animals, they're some amazing animals. So, and then I got to take them and give them all this, feed them, put straw down for them, let them rest.
Is it like being a horse jockey where you want to be as light as possible?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see how
perfect candidate. Come on.
You see how lean I am, and a lot of that's from dog mushing, but more so working outdoors in the cold, carrying buckets of food, doing the farmer's carry all day long, buckets of poop, buckets of water. You know what it is. I do a lot of farmer's carry, but I'm always walking in snow. Dog mushing it's not real physical, but it is physical, and when you do it all day long. You kind of develop a certain body type.
Yeah.
And when I look at all the mushers, like at any race, I'm like, yeah, everybody's pretty similar. You don't see anybody that's obese.
Yeah. You mentioned carrying the food. Are they just eating kibble or are they getting
raw
elk?
meat?
Yeah.
Raw meat. A lot of raw meat and a little bit of kibble. Yeah. So right now I have these 60-pound blocks of basically ground beef and fat, and the 30 dogs go through one of those a day. With added kibble. And then early in the season, I thought the dogs needed to put on a little bit of weight, so I had beef heart, beef liver, beef kidney, and they were going crazy on that stuff. So right now I've got them at the weight I want them, and so I'm just trying to maintain that, because in 3 days they can get fat or skinny. I mean, it happens like that, and so you're kind of chasing your tail if you're not on it. But every day I'm looking at them. We have a vet that comes down once a week, lives right next to our place. And he comes down and checks them. He's worked with sled dogs before, so we got real fortunate in finding him here or in Silverthorne. We're on an 850-acre ranch that was homesteaded back during the Homestead Act in the mid to late 1800s, and it's been in the family for 3 generations, and they love it. They don't use the ranch in the winter, and so when we approached them and said, here's our idea, they're like, we love it. It's on Acorn Creek Ranch just outside of Silverthorne. So shout out to Tom and Peggy Long there. 3rd generation owners of that ranch. In the summer it's hayfield. They grow hay or wheat or whatever it is, and then wintertime they never use it. So perfect opportunity for us.
You might have said this, but are these dogs that you have dogs in the family of the 2 guys in Alaska?
Yes.
Okay, so he gave you some of them, or you bred with some of them?
So this I'm just managing the operation. Like I don't own it. So they're his dogs. But in the dog yard, I have 3 dogs that were on last year's winning team that are running tours. I have 5 dogs that won in 2021 and came in second in 2022. I have 2 dogs, Ace and Yak. They have 2 wins and a second place finish. So like people are like, this isn't just your normal little tour of like, hey, let's do a loop with some dogs. These are champion Iditarod sled dogs.
cool.
And that's kind of what sets us apart. You know, we brought a little slice of Alaska down here with legitimate champions and the stories. Got some amazing stories with all the dogs. Because, you know, dog mushing isn't always easy. And I'll tell you a quick story. Last year's race, mile 100, you know, what do you guys think the most dangerous animal is up in Alaska?
Moose or grizzly?
Moose. Grizzly are hibernating. So,
Oh yeah.
so mile 100. So what happens is the snow falls so deep in the forests that moose like to come out onto our trails or onto the roads. That's why a lot of them get hit by cars. Worst thing for us is moose don't actively seek out your dogs. They're not hunting them. But you come around a blind turn, moose is on the trail, that moose most likely is going to come and start attacking your dog team. Fortunately, I've never had it. I've seen moose when I'm out there in the backcountry, but you know, I'll stop my team and make as much noise as I can. Sometimes you got to wait 30 minutes for it to get off the trail, but I'd rather do that than have to kill the moose because it's attacking my team.
But then you got to also gut it, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to do certain things.
You have to field dress it, yeah.
Yeah.
So mile 100, Dallas comes around this sharp downhill turn, angry moose right there, proceeds to attack his team. Before he could kill the moose, it gutted one of our girls, Falou.
No.
So Dallas wraps her up, puts him in the sled bag, gets to the next checkpoint, hands her over to the vets. There's always vets at all these checkpoints. And the vets are like, I don't know if she's going to make it. We're going to stabilize her. So Dallas is like, all right, do what you got to do. So takes off. They call him. He's racing. They call him like it's going to be $20,000 to $30,000 to even attempt to save her life. What do you want to do? And he's like, do what you got to do. Falou is at our place right now, Colorado dog sledding, running tours, and one of the
thank God.
sweetest
Wow.
girls. Yeah, I was just kind of teasing you there a little
That'd be
bit.
really-
That part I didn't like.
I saw how upset you're getting. I'm like, it's got a great ending. Well,
Yeah, that'd be
well,
a depressing ending.
Me watching a moose come after like Harper, let alone 30 Harpers,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
lose my mind.
Yeah.
So, you know, sad story, but great ending. And I tell you, if you guys come out to the dog yard, everybody meets Falou. I start my day with Falou kisses. She's just the sweetest girl.
This place sounds like heaven.
Yeah. If you like dogs, what we've got going on is really special. And then we'll end this in probably 1st of April. Go take everybody back, all the dogs back to Alaska. And then I will set up the 5th season of that glacier operation that I started with in the very beginning. So this will be, but I'll have some other responsibilities. So I won't spend my whole entire time up on the glacier. If I find the right manager, I will just have to take some phone calls and maybe fly up every now and then. But previous years, I've spent the entire summer up there.
How many people get to go on the sled when you do a dog sled tour?
So right now, each tour block, we have 10 tour blocks each day, and each tour block can hold 4 people. Now, if you show up with a group of 6, or if you can't show up, you need to book this in advance. But if you call me and you say, hey, I have 6, what I do is I book 4 people in a tour block and then 2 in the tour block that's 30 minutes apart, and then I'll take you all out at the earlier time. So to answer your question, I have sleds that hold 4 people. So I would have, for 6 people, I would take out one sled that holds 4 people and one sled that holds 2 people, unless you have an infant, a 2-year-old, and we don't charge you for 2-year-olds. They don't weigh anything, so they're just going to sit on a lap, so that's not a big deal.
Interesting. How come when people dog mush, like the musher stands on the back instead of just sitting in the sled?
Because, well, so if you're on a tour, on our tour loop, you could sit down the entire time. Where you're in the backcountry, you got to be watching what's coming up. Uphills, downhills, turns, trees down. So yeah, you're standing almost the entire time.
Are the dogs naturally knowing how to go around these things, or do you have certain words that tell them to go certain places?
Yeah, we have certain commands to give them. So on our trail, I have all these V's. We can do so many different things on the trails, and I like that because it keeps the dog sharp. We're not just doing the same thing all the time. But if I come to a Y in the trail and I want to go right, I'm going to say G. And if I want to go left, I'm going to say ha. So G and ha. And you really don't have to say it super loud, because as you come up to it, a good leader, they're going to perk up a little bit, waiting for that command. And as soon as you say it, it's very aggressive. They're like, yeah, let's go.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool to watch.
Are these universal commands, or do the commands change?
No, it's universal. So G comes from old horse commands, so get over, and ha comes from haul over. It just got shortened to G and ha.
Huh, that's cool.
Is the lead dog like the captain of the team?
Yeah, so your lead dog is always your most important. You could have a single lead dog or you have two lead dogs. Oftentimes we run two leads. And not every dog can run lead, but every dog can run in all the other positions on the team. And we do like to mix it up a lot. A good analogy I like to give, you run the same lead dog over and over. It's like if you take a road trip to Miami and one person's driving the entire time. You're thinking about the fuel, the gas, cops, speed, all those other traffic. The person if in the passenger seat's on their iPad or taking a nap, and it's a little bit easier. So mentally, you don't want to run the same dog all the time in lead. You want to mix it up.
Yeah. How do you know which dogs will make good lead dogs? Like, what qualities are there?
So, like right now, one thing I'm focusing on is I'm trying to develop some of the younger dogs into leaders. So I think I've got a few of them that are potential future leaders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them up with a solid leader, and they're going to learn how to be a leader. But not all dogs are leaders.
Can you give me like a quick rundown of the squad, like names, personalities?
Yes.
Like, let's go through their intro reel.
All right. So when we have a litter of puppies, we theme the litter. So that way we always remember the brothers and sisters. So for example, we have a cheese litter. So Munster and Cheddar are up in Alaska training for Iditarod. I have Gouda and Parmesan here with me. And there's also a Feta, and she's up in Alaska. But the boys, Munster and Cheddar's a big, beautiful golden boy. Like, he's going to run Iditarod this year. And then Gouda and Feta are some of the sweetest girls you've ever met. So I mentioned Falou earlier. So here's a pop quiz for you guys. So if I had dogs named Falou, Joanna, Frank, Wilbur, and Bernard, where does that come from?
Charlotte's Web?
Rescuers Down Under.
Damn it.
So
Wilbur, I thought.
Yeah. So Dallas, his daughter named like 6 years ago, she named a bunch of, we call them Disney dogs. So in the yard, I have Timon and Simba. And back in Alaska, there's Zazu, Pumbaa, and Mufasa. So that's the Lion King litter. And Timon actually was on the winning team last year, as was Falou and Frank. Then, everybody calls him my boy. So Ace, don't know how he was named, but he's got 2 wins and a second place. We just bred him right before I came down here. And right before I came to Colorado, Joanna, Falou's sister, had 8 little Ace babies, and I got to see them, puppies. I got to see them with their eyes closed. And now I get videos every now and then of them running around. So I can't wait to meet those guys.
What's their litter going to be?
That's not for me to decide. That's a Dallas thing. So
okay. He picks every time?
Not every time. I got to name one litter. I named a litter Top Gun litter.
Oh,
So
okay.
I got Iceman, Maverick, and the female was, we only had one female in that litter, so I named her Charlie. That was from the first Top Gun. So yeah, I have named one litter.
Cool.
But yeah, most of the time he makes the decision.
Are the way that they interact just like in a non-sled context, can you tell, like, do their personalities in that sort of a setting translate to how they'll be out on the track?
Yeah, so there's some dogs you can't run together. Like, I've got a female that she just doesn't like other females, so she always runs with a male. I got a couple other boys that are a little spicy, and they're young, and they're trying to prove themselves, and they might go after an older one just to try to be like, hey. And it wouldn't be serious. As long as, if you're there when it starts, a big, hey, they stop and look at you, and you're like, and then you separate them. So got a couple dogs. I just noticed they're kind of bickering. They can't get to each other, but they're kind of bickering. So I just take one dog out and then move a female over there, and it's like, that solves the problem. Most of the time. I mean, there's occasions when it, gets a little more serious, but not very often.
Does it only matter who they're running next to? Like, the girl that doesn't like the other girls, is she running with all other boys, or is it just the one next to her's got to be a dude?
Just the one next to her. But interesting thing with sled dogs, like, they're so intense that if a dog slacks off and is not working, an aggressive dog behind it will grab them and let them know.
So do you put the slackers with the aggressive ones on purpose?
Well, we don't have any slackers here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got all rock stars.
Fair.
Are there any similarities to the way that the pack interacts to like what you experienced in the military, like with it being?
No, I'd never worked with dogs like this.
Yeah.
Like everything I've learned in the past 4 years.
Okay.
And I still have a lot more to learn, but
Yeah.
that's part of the process. But if anybody's still listening to this, since we're off the hiking topic, there's a big similarity to running dogs in the backcountry to thru-hiking. You're out there in the middle of nowhere, you're on your own, but now you have the added responsibility of 10, 12 dogs, however many you're taking. And so I did a race last March. I did a 200 miler, and I absolutely loved it because, I'd stop, I'd run 4 or 5 hours, I'd stop, I'd tie my team off, I'd cook them dinner, raw meat, a little kibble, then throw straw down for them, and then they immediately curl up because it's all about rest and recovery. And then I'm just out there all by myself, just like, this is pretty cool.
So, okay, that's actually interesting. I wouldn't have thought about bringing straw. What do you pack for an 8 to 9 day race? Like how much food, how much other things, like what goes into that kit?
So I won't pack for an 8 or 9 day race because I haven't done that. But
a person.
a person. So there are 26 checkpoints along the way. So you have to carry a minimum of 3 days of food for the dog and 3 days of straw for the dog, along with jackets for them if it gets real cold. And then the rest of the food and stuff is put at checkpoints. So when Dallas races, he's probably sending food and supplies like 20 checkpoints because he's very strategic and he's trying to win. If I ever do Iditarod, I'm sending food and whiskey to every single checkpoint. So there's no way I'm going to show up and be like, I don't have enough to,
Yeah.
But so it just depends. Like if I ever race, it's going to be to finish, and it's going to be for the adventure and the experience. And that's what I found out on that 200 miler. I'm like, I don't care what place I come in. And I'm normally a very competitive person, running, triathlon, whatever else. But with dog mushing, I'm like, I just want the experience. Take care of those dogs and be out in the Alaska wilds with a pack of dogs.
Tell me about the bond that you have with these dogs.
It's pretty incredible. And, every musher has different, like my boy is Ace, and everybody knows it. And other mushers don't have that same bond, but they have with Ace, but they have the same bond with other dogs. It's almost like the dog picks you. But, I got 30 dogs, and I love all 30 of those dogs like any pet I've ever owned. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Does that bond happen pretty quickly?
Yeah, except for, we've got one dog. He wasn't socialized as a puppy, so he doesn't like any of the guests we bring. So we don't stress him out. They don't get to meet him because he just pace back and forth. In the first season I was working with him, I couldn't put a harness on him. He would just run from me. This year, he's like my best buddy. So it's taken a while. Last year he was pretty good, but this year he is my best buddy. So it just takes time with some dogs. Every dog matures differently, like some of the dogs like Timon, big fighter when he was younger. I hated running him because he's always going to cause a fight or try to. This year he's matured. He's a sweet boy. So yeah, every dog's different.
How long can they mush for? Like at what age are they in their prime?
Yep, that's a great question. So generally about age 9, they retire. And they tell us they lose the enthusiasm. You see it. Like right now, if I go get a dog to go out and run, it is barking, it's jumping, it's acting crazy. Like, I just want to go run. If you go and they're just like not coming out of their house and they're not excited, you're getting close to retirement. So I've got 3 boys, Ace, Yak, and Canton. They're all champions. They're the oldest dogs in the yard, and they're approaching retirement age, but they still want to run. So they won't do any more racing, but we're doing 4 miles on this trail, and they're excited about it. So it'd be cruel not to run them, because then they wouldn't have that sense of purpose. And these dogs live to be 15, 16. I've seen 17.
Wow.
Retire around 9, and that's about half their life they're running, and then half their life they're pets. And
yeah.
And talk about a hiking companion. Like you guys have seen it on trails. Somebody brings that dog off the couch, and it's got blisters and it's limping. These dogs would be the ultimate hiking companion.
So when I got Harper, she's an Australian Shepherd.
Yeah, which is a working breed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Trust me, I've thought about how cute it would be if she was pulling a little sleigh.
Sled.
Sorry.
Sleighs for horses.
And reindeer.
And reindeer.
Which are real.
Which are real.
We have 2 of them at our kennel in Alaska.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we have 2 reindeer. Anyway, so go ahead.
So are Huskies all not great off leash? Because that was why I went Australian Shepherd over Husky, was for hiking. Both great athletic dogs, but Huskies I've heard just like have no recall.
So, it depends upon the dog, but these are Alaskan Huskies. These aren't the blue-eyed Disney dogs. Siberian Huskies, these are Alaskan Huskies. A little bit different. As they get older, they get real better with recall, because in the beginning, all these dogs want to do is run. So they're like, no, I'm running. Like if I'm out in the backcountry and I fall off the sled, they're not stopping. I'm stuck out there. And now
Even Ace.
I've got a runaway dog team, and they're going to go a lot, because we keep them about 9 miles an hour for everything we do. That's what wins Iditarod, 9.5. So we do tours that way. We do racing. We do training, all about the same speed. You fall off of that, so you're slowing them down almost the entire time. You fall off, team's gone. Not a good thing. Very dangerous for the dogs. Dangerous for you if you're in the backcountry.
Yeah.
All your supplies are in that sled.
How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
You never let go.
Are you holding, like, are you, like, do you have, like, how, ski poles, how they have the little wrist hoops that you put your hands on?
No.
Do you have anything like that?
You're holding on. And I found the first 2 years I was doing this, I was getting, like, tennis elbow, little tendonitis right here, and it was because I was gripping so hard, because I was terrified, like, don't let go. So we were out doing a training run, I don't know, 100 miles or something, and we were starting from a frozen parking lot, to get onto the trail. And when I took off, for some reason, my dogs ran around this truck and slammed my whole body into the side of the truck and tipped over my sled, and I'm being drugged through the parking lot trying to figure out, how do I right this? And there's it's a very common place where people go to train dogs, and there's like these old timers, Iditarod vets, and they're like, hey buddy, you okay? And I'm just ignoring them, like, this is embarrassing, but they are just dragging me, and I got it righted up. And that's a situation where you just don't ever let go.
Wow. How fast can dogs run?
Oh, they can go 15, 20 if you're not slowing them down, but they're going to get injured, and they can't finish a long distance race that way, right? Now, there are sprint dogs. That's pretty common out here in this area, and they're going to go 15, 20, but completely different dog. Our dogs are endurance athletes, so it's just like you don't take off sprinting with the Kenyans at the start of a marathon, because you're not going to finish. Right?
How fast do moose run? Like, does the moose outrun the dog, or does the dog keep pace?
I've never been chased by a moose, but you don't run from a moose. They're dumb animals. You just hide behind a tree, and they're like, oh, where'd he go? Yeah,
I'm just thinking back to the Iditarod part. Interesting.
What's the website for the...
ColoradoDogSledding.com.
Okay.
So if we'd call it, so up in Alaska it's dog mushing, right? But if we said ColoradoDogMushing.com, I probably wouldn't have any business right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, ColoradoDogSledding.com, and then that's also Instagram and Facebook. Give us a follow. And then can I do a plug?
Yeah, please.
So I am looking to hire people for the summer.
You probably are going to get flooded with resumes.
I quit.
Exactly.
So I've got 3 operations. They're not mine, but I'm helping run them. 2 are glacier operations, which that's how I started. One of them's going to be brand new. One of them's going to be its 5th year. And then I have the kennel in Talkeetna where we run tours, and you're on a cart with wheels. Well, the guests are, and then you're, me or one of the other mushers or handlers would be out front on a side-by-side 4-wheeler, and just taking people through the woods. And so that's kind of what we're doing, and I'm actively looking for people.
Where should they submit a resume?
Ben at AK Sled Dog Tours.
Okay. You're going to get some resumes. People listening to this are going to be all in on that.
Yeah, and that's perfect for, you're looking for people in the summer. I was like, it's perfect for hiking.
I'm also,
winter.
the next season, I'm going to be looking for people potentially here at the kennel in Alaska. So there's a lot, like, we're growing very fast. So I need really good people. And I know thru-hikers can do difficult things.
Yeah.
So that's a good dynamic.
Look at these dogs.
Yeah, they're adorable.
Here you got there.
Who are those?
Oh, so that's at the finish when Dallas won. That is Sebastian. And that dog came from Dallas's dad's kennel, so I'm going to get his name wrong, so I'm not even going to guess. But on the left there, that is Sebastian. Sebastian's brother is Flounder, and his sister is Ariel.
Little Mermaid.
There you go.
Were you always a dog
redhead
person?
nose.
Yeah, you know, I've always had one dog.
Yeah.
I've never had multiple dogs, but
Yeah.
I've had dogs my whole life. And you know, at the kennel in Alaska, we have 130 up there right now.
Wow.
So it's a big operation.
Yeah.
Wow, dryland mushing. Did you just touch on that? And I just was looking
so,
at this
so
as
that's
we
what
did
we
it.
do at the kennel in the summer, and then we also take the dogs up to the glacier. And up there, it's winter all summer long. It's pretty crazy, gnarly storms come in.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Which then the helicopters can't get in, so you're just off all day playing Catan.
Yeah.
A lot of Catan playing and poker.
Well, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
I hope and am confident you will get lots of resumes from this. But yeah, we'll end with the peak performance question presented by Topo Athletic. Use code TREKWINTER15 at topoathletic.com to get 15% off a pair of trail runners. What is your top performance enhancing or backpacking hack? I know we talked about the collagen already.
Yeah, nutrition.
Yeah.
I think it's just staying fit all year round. You know, like if you want to do a thru hike, you can't wait until a month before to start getting yourself fit. That's because most of the injuries hikers have are overuse injuries. You know, plantar fasciitis, IT band, you know, calf pulls, all that, any other tendonitis, and that's just because you're not, you haven't physically prepared. So I think staying fit all year round, eating healthy, whole foods, a lot of meat. I'm a big protein eater. So, yeah, that's what works for me.
Yeah. Are you sharing food with the dogs, eating some raw elk and whatnot?
No, because no, but yeah, they eat very well.
Yeah.
Because their whole diet's fat and protein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, this has been fascinating. I definitely am going to have to dig more into dog mushing because that sounds like the greatest job of all time.
I haven't gotten Garrett's Valentine's Day gift, so I'm like, this is an idea. The seed is planted.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I'm booked solid until probably March 3rd. So Valentine's Day weekend's
Really?
out. But I have room in March, so
Okay.
I'll give you my number. Contact me. Let's make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife Jenna will be very into this, so
Okay.
we'll
Yeah.
make a trip up there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could do a Backpacker Radio dog mush.
Yeah.
A
Hell
double
yeah.
date?
A double date.
We've never done that.
Yeah.
Fun.
Sweet. Yeah, Ben, is there anything else you want to plug? Obviously, Instagram, anything like that?
No, I'm just living my best life. My kids are grown, so it allows me to do that. I'm retired from the military. That gives me help too. But yeah, I love doing what I'm doing because small teams. I'm always in the backcountry, and I'm not in a city, so that's healthy for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
It's been a blast, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. This first one is thru-hiking while blind, completing the Appalachian Trail with a visual disability. This is by Andrew Nalon. In this article, Andrew shares his journey as a legally blind and completely colorblind hiker tackling the AT. Born with a genetic visual impairment, Nalon found that backpacking offered freedom from the structured world, but it also came with some serious challenges, notably trying to follow the trail and its markers. Since he couldn't distinguish between white, blue, and other colors, he frequently ended up off-route, earning him the trail name Time Traveler from his hiking partner. You can get the full rundown from this one in the link in the show notes. And yeah, we'll do this. The best trail runners for thru hiking in 2025. Kelly ring leads this, but we get input from all of our gear riders at the Trek. A lot of familiar names in here. I think we recently did the most popular trail runners from the AT, so you'll see a lot of overlap there. But yeah, trail runners are good. If you're curious to know which trail runners you should be considering for your long trails in 2025, you can get that one in the show notes as well. Question of the day, this is yours.
Yeah, this I saw on a reel this morning, and I thought, that's a very interesting question. And I didn't stick around for the whole thing, so I don't know the answer. But Do airplanes have keys? Is the question.
Yeah.
AKA, like a car, you take the key, you go to the car, you put the key in, you fly the car. No, you drive the car. For a small airplane, sure, I'm sure it has a key, right? Like a little 1-2-seater you go in. But what about these big commercial airplanes?
I don't even know if small planes. I'm mechanically very stupid. I don't know anything about vehicles. Like,
do you think they would though? Because at a certain size, you got to think, is that necessary?
My guess, and I did not look this up, is that I don't think any plane has keys. I could be wrong, but I just imagine
I think
there's
the small ones
like a little
do.
plastic covering. I'm just picturing like a cockpit that goes over, and you flip that up, and then you flip a switch or two. And
right,
then,
like it's like a sequence.
Yeah.
Like in Mad Max when they're like making sure that they're not setting off the
Exactly.
thing.
That's what I'm picturing for a plane. I don't. Keys would be funny, and I if you told me that they did have keys, I would.
Well, I just have never seen the pilot like swinging them around his finger as he gets on the plane. But the
Yeah.
plane's already there, so someone had to put it there. So then you
Yeah.
got to think, well, the car drove it there, right? They hook it up to the thing and they pull it out of the hangar.
Yeah.
So
I'm going with switches. That's my guess.
an on-off switch.
Sequences. I don't know.
Yeah, my brain just finds that tough to believe. But like
You think
the
there's a key? Like someone's.
No, because that doesn't make sense either. Why would you need a key? You know, like no one's
Yeah.
stealing your giant commercial plane.
Yeah.
And no one's going to probably know how to fly it even if they had the key.
Especially like newer cars now, the key is almost more just like Bluetooth recognition that the person that should have access to the vehicle has it. Because
See if they've
like,
got like a fob.
yeah, like because we have a vehicle where you don't actually insert a key into the ignition. You have it on your person, and if you're within the radius of where you're supposed to be, the car will start.
Interesting. I'm going to leave this undetermined right now, but I just texted Mims and asked her if airplanes have keys
There you
because
go.
she is not technically, she is. She's a pilot.
Okay. Should I chat GPT it and see what the actual answer is?
What, you don't believe her?
Well, I didn't assume that she was going to get back to us in time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, ChatGPT it.
Most airplanes do not have keys in the way
Really?
that cars do. Commercial airlines, private jets, and even many small planes do not require a key to start. Instead, they use switches, buttons, or other security measures to power up the aircraft. However, some small general aviation aircraft, like Cessna and Piper planes, do have ignition keys similar to cars. There you go.
Okay, so we're both right.
These keys are typically used for starting the engine. That's so funny to me.
Isn't that silly?
Yeah, locking the cockpit door.
Yeah.
I guess if you're like parking it in a place where there's other planes, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, but you would know, like, oh, there goes so-and-so in my plane,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And, like, they would have had to probably leave their plane to get your plane.
Sounds like the plot for like Ocean's 14 or something.
And you're not stealing a car if you can't drive a car.
Yeah.
Well, some might.
Locking the cockpit door, securing avionics or fuel systems.
Hmm.
Larger commercial jets and military aircraft, on the other hand, relies on security procedures, access codes, and cockpit security rather than physical keys. So, yeah, we were both right.
Interesting. Okay. Well, planes.
Thing of the week. Mine is a depressing thing of the week.
Okay.
I think we talked recently about how we have partner arguments about trying to decide like what is for dinner.
I don't know if that one came up, but we did talk about partner
It wasn't
arguments.
necessarily from the Valentine's Day episode. I think this might have been a few episodes ago. But like Jen and I are oftentimes having disagreements on what we should DoorDash. And I always throw it out there and it gets shot down 95% of the time. Is pho. I love pho. And she's never in the mood for pho. Well, recently I won that one. We got pho. And Jen got food poisoning.
No. Zach.
So pho's done forever now. Like she has it now, a taste aversion to pho. So
Oh, no.
I will never be eating pho again for the rest of my life.
That's so funny.
Yeah, like viciously
You
woke
can't
up
catch
at
a
3
break.
a.m., diarrhea, puking, like the full 9 yards.
Oh, and she
And-
probably just looked at you like you did this.
Yeah, and the funny thing is she got the meat-free version of it. So there was no beef in there. It was just like beef broth and steamed vegetables. And I got the one with beef, and I was fine. So apparently the steamed vegetables is what got her.
Shut up. That actually kind of makes me want it a bit. My problem with pho is that it's like you can't eat the whole thing. There's so much of it.
I did.
But
I usually don't, but I did this time.
I say you, but I mean me. I can't eat the whole thing. There's so much of it.
It's a lot.
However, whenever like I get to the point of like I can't fit another bite in, I need to stop. My brain says, "I'm still hungry. When are you going to feed me?" It doesn't recognize pho as food. It recognizes it as stomach filler, but the actual, like, I need to feed myself, I need to eat something, I need to satisfy this hunger craving, stays. And so I leave a meal of pho feeling incredibly, like, physically, like,
Full.
there's no, I don't feel full. There's no room left, but I feel like I have not been fed and I'm hungry and I need to feel that full feeling,
You
and I
haven't
don't feel it.
satisfied the psychological urge of like chewing enough food.
Everything in me tells me we did not just eat.
Yeah.
Except for when I then try to eat something and it's like, and where will I put that?
Yeah, because
You
soup
know?
is usually like an appetizer or something. but-
Any other soup, I don't have this issue. It's
Yeah.
ramen, no issue.
Mm.
Pho specifically
Interesting.
doesn't.
I think I read something that cultures that eat a lot of soup tend to be thinner because it's like very filling per calorie. Like I don't know how many calories a bowl of pho is, but I imagine because you get full mostly off of the broth, which is not calorie dense, that makes sense.
Right. It's like drinking an Nalgene of water and eating a sprig of cilantro.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just drinking a lot of water and calling it a meal.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. So that's my beef with pho. But it is tasty.
Are you a dad?
Maybe. My thing of the week happened today. Do you know how when honey gets cold, it will start to crystallize and become a hard substance rather than its normal soft gooey self?
Yeah. You have to throw it in like a bowl of hot water or something.
Yeah, and you like give it a hot water bath and it then resumes. Well, I went to make tea today and I, in the fall, had bought what I considered to be an egregious amount of honey from my neighbor who has honeybees. Like, I told him it was for me and several friends. It was all for me, except for one little jar.
Local raw honey, that's awesome.
Yeah, insane. Unfortunately, I finished it. I thought it would get me to spring when he would then have
Is
the
this just from
honeybees
tea?
working again. It didn't last long enough. So that's
Does
really
that have any impact on your allergies? I've heard that raw honey is supposed to be good for allergies. And as
it
somebody
is,
who has a
especially
lot-
if it's local, because they're taking pollen from the local flowers.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't help myself anymore than using the neighbor's bees. They're literally taking the pollen that's fucking me up.
Yeah.
You know, like it's great. Has it helped? I don't know. I just started using his in the fall. But so I'm like, okay, I need more mason jars of this honey. Like, surely I couldn't have run out. I bought so much. And so I'm looking through this back corner of the kitchen where I had stored all my mason jars of honey that I thought I would never get through. And I find one. And I'm like, sick. Like, one left. Let's go. And it's crystallized. So I've got my hot water kettle boiling. I've got my tea packet in the cup. It's got a little bit of tea left in the bottom because I didn't finish it. And I wanted another cup because it was cold. I was more trying to just fix the cold part that I was feeling than actually, like, drink another cup. I was like, I'll be warm if I do this. Anyway, so I put it in its little tin tray, get the hot water, put it in the tray, give it its little bath. And it, like, I'm hitting it with a spoon. It's starting to soften enough where I can scrape it, you know, like scraping it, putting it in the cup. And granted, I have not had to take honey from that hard of a crystallized form and put it into the cup and like watch it melt back to its usual self. But something just didn't seem right about this, and it's still a mystery. However, it just like didn't fully melt, and it got a little clumpy in spots, and it was sticking to the spoon when I pulled the spoon out, and the top of the cup just looked like hella oily. And so now I'm looking at this honey thing and I'm like, are you bacon grease? Has someone been putting cooked bacon grease into a mason jar and hiding it in the very back corner of the kitchen where they think that no one's going to find it and accidentally use it? And I'm currently giving this bacon grease a water bath and putting it in my tea.
Does it smell or taste like bacon?
It has no smell. So I can't tell if it smells like honey or bacon because it's so hard that it's not giving off any smell.
Huh.
But my housemate cooks a ton. And I asked him, I was like, hey, I know you like don't put your bacon grease down the sink because you're not an idiot. But like, do you happen to put it in a mason jar in the corner of the kitchen by all my honey mason jars? Said no. Okay, I gotta trust him. Went to Garrett. I was like, Garrett, I know that like you don't cook breakfast ever, but is there any world where you might be storing bacon grease in the corner? No. Ask so-and-so. He's the one that used, and like he already said no. So now I'm looking at this thing. It's still in its water bath, mind you, to this minute. I ended up throwing out the cup of tea because it just looked so oily. I was like, there's no way this is right. but I don't know what else could be in this jar because the only thing in that corner is my tea stuff. And the only thing where it was were all my other identical mason jars of honey that look exactly the same. Why is it so oily?
So it's only this jar.
There's no other jars. They're all gone.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, if maybe something about, like, unrefined raw honey could produce that oily
This is
residue.
the only one that's gotten crystallized. The rest I've used before they've gotten to that point, but today it was very cold.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's something in the unforming of it, but where would the oil come from?
Yeah, maybe you had a sick bee. Maybe you had a bee that ate that phaw that was just, like, puking and diarrheaing when he was making honey, and
I don't know.
you got tainted honey.
I'm afraid to throw it out because I'm like, imagine me. I ran out of my honey from my neighbor,
Yeah.
and I take a fully good jar of it and toss it. No, but imagine I drink it and I'm drinking bacon grease peach tea.
I would think any, like, rendered animal fat would have a pretty strong odor, so you wouldn't confuse that.
It didn't look right in the cup. So that's my of the day of the week is what am I going to do for
Your
my
greasy
tea
honey,
tomorrow?
Chaunce's greasy honey.
Am I going to try it again in my tea tomorrow and hope for different results?
Yeah. I think that's the move. And then just drink it.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do that.
Maybe the grease is where all the extra allergy fighting properties come from.
I mean, people do put butter in their coffee.
Yeah, I think that fat has died off a little bit, but I used to do that.
Well, yeah, if we have any honey experts on here that know what happens when you give hardened honey a water bath and how it's supposed to cooperate in that situation. This was my first time trying it, and I think I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Something clearly wasn't
Somebody
right.
who's a honey expert will email us, I'm sure of it.
And I don't want to tell my neighbor because I don't want him to be like, oh, idiot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm about to message him and be like, hey, I know you said no more honey till spring. Do you have any other jars? I'm tweaking.
Were you greasing the honey?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the Triple Crown.
No, you have a gross or not gross. Oh, wait,
You wanna do
that's
that
after.
first?
Sorry. No, I just can't read.
Triple Crown of short insults.
Yeah.
I was thinking like 2 words or less. If you really like, if you're driving, this is the thing that comes out of your mouth like almost involuntarily.
Okay. My first one is 4 letters, 4 words.
Okay, but still short.
Well, I guess the insult part is 3 words, but I heard it in a sentence today. I read it in a sentence today on a Facebook group, and I thought that's funny.
Okay.
Telling someone they have room temperature IQ. I really liked that one when I saw it today. I thought that was great.
Yeah. Room temperature IQ.
Yeah.
I don't even know exactly what that means. Maybe my IQ is room temperature, but it definitely doesn't feel like a compliment.
Well, like if the room's set to like 72, like that's a pretty fucking low IQ.
Yeah. All right. I like that. I guess if you're in a really hot place, then maybe you're
Yeah,
smarter.
when you're in your sauna, you are just big brains.
The one that I like to whip out the most, and that comes out while I'm driving, not with kids in the car, is a classic fuck face. I whip out a good fuck face every now and again. I have to be really mad, but fuck face is my go-to usually. From there, I think kind of in the same vein as what you said, is it's really funny when you call someone a mouth breather. Nothing more to that. Apparently, there's something about a correlation with a lower IQ and mouth breathing.
Okay.
I don't know why that is, but
I'm trying to find the spelling of my. Oh, it's okay. There's a spelling. See, the second definition on this makes me think that this is not a word I should say out loud.
do it. Those are the best ones.
But I also don't know it. This is British slang.
Yeah.
This is when I dated.
So it's cunt something.
No, when I dated the guy from the UK, he used to call me. He used to call me a cretin, which I always thought was really funny because I'm like, what is that? Apparently, we pronounce it cretin.
Yeah.
Cretin.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was cretin because that's how he would say it. So then I just started saying it, and I'm like, this is a new word. I've never heard it before because
Yeah.
I've never heard cretin before.
What is the definition of that? I don't even know.
A stupid person, parentheses, used as a general term of abuse.
Oh.
So it wasn't a bad relationship, but then you Google it and you're like, maybe that wasn't like an endearing nickname.
Yeah. Well, just a cultural difference. It's because if you call someone a cunt in the United States, like that's a really not nice thing to say.
Yeah.
But in England, they throw the C word around like a term of endearment almost. Like It definitely doesn't have the same
Okay,
meaning
see,
here.
this is now when did cretin become an insult? Like spaz is an insult that evolved from a very real and very dreadful medical condition. That's where I get worried by it. I'm like, am I insulting a group of people that I don't even know I'm insulting right now? So if so, I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
But that's one that just sticks in my head all the time because I
Sure.
was called it a bunch.
Yeah. I know my short tour in England, minger was a term that they used for somebody who sucks or somebody's mingy.
I thought that was a term for a vagina.
It might be, but like the context in which is used is like, he's a bit of a minga.
Well, mine now scrolling it says dated now offensive. So I don't currently use that term, but that's just
We
one
probably
that
use a
popped
lot
in
of
my mind.
expressions on this podcast that would get
Yeah.
the same
I
explanation.
know, but I always feel bad when I get a DM and it's like, hey, you actually offended me.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
never an intent. When I'm driving, it's just always a variation of fuck. There's so many things you can do with that word, and I know that's such a cop-out,
It's
but
very
that is what I go for.
It's versatile.
You can insert the word anywhere, and it flows in a sentence. So if you're someone that likes to say like a lot in a sentence, or, you just have filler words, what have
Do
you.
do you call someone a fuck, or is
You
fuck
could.
a bit?
You're being such a fuck right now.
But what's your combination that you go to the most?
Motherfucker, a fucking idiot. Like,
Polly.
I don't know. So that's my other one.
Yeah.
I'm really regretting my first one now that I read the second definition. I'm like really in my head about it. Sorry, everyone.
My last one doesn't need any explanation. It is a classic. Is a douchebag. Someone just being a douchebag.
Yeah,
That
that's a
doesn't-
good one.
That doesn't need any explanation.
Yeah, I feel better about using fuck as one because douchebags like equally as uncreative.
Yeah, no, these are fuck face is definitely not creative either. And that's just my default. I'm mad at you.
I like bozo.
Bozo's a great
I
one.
like telling someone you're being a bozo.
Bozo's great.
Especially like if someone's driving on the road and they're bad at driving, like what's this bozo doing?
I can see your dad saying that.
I could see him saying that too.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Any honorable mentions?
Everything's a face for me. So like shit face, fuck face, ass face, and maybe not so much, but like shit face I use shit face more than shit head, even though shit head is the more traditional expression.
My honorable mention, this probably could take the place of one of my top three. It is 4 words, so this is over your limit. But they used to say this, I've said this on podcasts before, they used to say this at the summer camp amongst staff, never to the kids. But when a member of the staff was doing something, like not the smart way of doing it, they would say, work harder, not smarter. Because the phrase is work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, you got the phrase wrong. And then you'd be like, fuck, I'm the idiot, So I do like saying work harder, not smarter. And I'll say it to myself if I notice that I'm doing something a dumb way too.
There you go.
I think that's a nice, fun insult.
I like that, especially when the insult's inwardly directed.
Yeah.
Yeah, gross or not gross. I just had to bring this one up because you were privy to it. But remember when my mom showed up, she brought that pie?
Yeah.
It's been sitting here that entire time, and it hasn't been opened until today. And I'm curious so she brought it after she's had it for some period of time because a quarter of it was already missing. My mom has this tendency that, like, when food's about to expire, she gives it to us. Like, we're her dumpster. And so it's been sitting in here for at least 5 days. And, yeah, I cracked it open and had some. And it was a little bit like the dough was gooey in places it shouldn't have been. Still
Does it
delicious.
say a date on the box?
I didn't even look.
Check. Because I think pie lasts for like a while. She wasn't here that long ago.
I probably should have looked at it. Sell by 2/8.
That's still good.
Do you have like a week after the sell by
Today's
date?
the 11th. Let's say you bought it on the sell-by date for a birthday party a few days later. That should be good, right? 9, 10, 11. The sell-by date was 3 days ago.
It's just taking like weird forms.
No, I would eat that.
Do you want some?
No, but I would eat it.
Okay. Well, I did. Ate quite a bit of it.
Okay. I'm going to say not gross.
Hey, dog, if you want any pie, help yourself.
Yeah, after we sold it that way.
It is very good. Aside from the texture that I just
Yeah, but the
described it.
inside of a pie is supposed to be a little sticky.
Yeah, but like the dough being gooey was a little bit off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you handed me was a little, I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Natural
something on my
moisturizer.
fingers right now.
Yeah. All right, mailbag.
Howdy, this is Vegas, 18 Nobo, class of 23. Love the podcast and have had the pleasure of meeting a few folks you've had featured on the show. I've also hiked the Foothills Trail, the West Highland Way, and I'll be finishing a through hike of the Sheltowee Trace Trail this November, in addition to my plans for PCT next year, 2025. You guys provide the absolute best listening material for long days on the trail, and the conversations/banter y'all have together feel like something straight out of a typical day with the tramley. Thanks again to Chaunce and Badger for signing my chest at AT Trail Days 24. Hopefully they remember that. Absolutely do.
I've only signed one chest in my life, and yeah, you can never forget that.
And my intention is to complete my triple crown with CDT through in 2027. And after that, my absolute life goal is to be a guest on the podcast. Hopefully you guys aren't way too big and popular for me by then, but with how good the show is, we'll see. Thanks again. No name. Oh, yeah, he said Vegas in the beginning.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're definitely going to be way too popular at that point.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll let him sign my chest. No, I'll be a married woman. Come on.
All right. 5-star review. This is from Rachel Mundell. Off Leash Doggy. Great show. I love the wide variety. This is perfectly. Rachel always does this. She's the best.
I'm about to get roasted.
I love the wide variety of topics discussed. There's content for every subject or angle of perspective. Thanks, guys. Something I wanted to bring up, though. But off-leash dogs on trail, controversial guests. What the hosts want to put out for us to hear is completely up to them, and we can decide if we want to continue listening, which I will. Heart emoji. That said, it would be awesome to hear a little more about responsible dog ownership while using public spaces. There were a couple of shows where Zach brought up discussing off-leash dogs on trail, and the guests on both episodes answered, but noticeably and quickly changed the subject. I appreciated his effort to bring up the topic, though. The amount of dog owners who think that it's okay because their dog is quote-unquote friendly is very disappointing. I was attacked by a dog who, as it were running up to me, the owner shouted out, "Don't worry, he's friendly." There have also been numerous times where an off-leash dog has run up to me on a trail and jumped on me with the owner far behind and not even in sight of the dog. I'd love to see the Trek use their platform to make more of an effort to shed light on recreating responsibly with pets. I could very well have missed a post or podcast that does this, but I just from what I've listened to, lots of episodes, it does seem to be something that isn't deeply discussed when it's brought up. Thank you to Rachel for that. Do you want to discuss off?
I thought I was going to get roasted on that, but she targeted you, which is, I mean, we're both at fault. I'm currently...
I don't think I was targeted.
She mentioned your name. She didn't mention mine. Zach brought up discussing.
Yeah, I was...
Yeah, but we've both talked about letting our dogs off leash on trails.
Yes, I will admit that I've been guilty of this. I've actually gotten ticketed in Jeffco for my dog being off leash. Yeah, it's one of those things where I try not to promote it because Sierra has excellent recall, and there's never been a scenario where she's been even like remotely aggressive toward people. But I also understand the argument of like, because your dog is good, that doesn't enable other people to do that thing. So I try not to promote it. I understand people have been attacked by dogs in their youth, and like that's a scarring thing that will affect you forever. And some people who think that their dogs have excellent recall, they do until they don't, and then something goes very wrong. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to be on trail in a place where there are other people, you absolutely should have your dog on leash.
Yeah, I'm equally guilty of disobeying this rule. It's the hard part about talking about it is like I don't want to defend my actions because I know at times that they are wrong. But on the other hand, like if I were to see, because it all comes off as defending it. Like I posted a video tonight at the Foothills Trail and Harper's not on a leash, and most of it, not all of it, I always have a leash on hand and I'll put her on a leash if I see other people around. But in my mind, it's like if I'm doing a trail that is not super popular in an off-season month like February and she's there, like what a great opportunity to give her to be off the leash when she, in most other areas of life living in a city, is on one. And I like using that time to practice certain things. Like if I let her off a leash and she goes a little far ahead and I call her to stop and she sits and she waits for me to get to her and then she goes and does the next thing, like I enjoy getting that time to spend with her on it. And I know that she enjoys being off the leash a lot more. I usually try not to talk about it too much. Like part of why I think we changed the subject quickly when it does come up is I don't want to promote it, but I'm also like, I don't want to sit here and pretend to be perfect and be like, this is what you should do, if I know myself that I'm not fully following that. Yeah. And I think there's a heck of a lot of things that you should do to be a responsible person outdoors. And I try to do most of them to my best ability as much and as often as I can. And that's the one where I'm like, depending on the scenario and depending on the vibe, if I'm on a popular trail in the city, I'm not going to take my dog off the leash, right? Or like if it's somewhere where there's going to be other dogs, I'm not going to do that. But if it is just me and her out there and I'm seeing a person a day, at most, I have a hard time adhering to it.
Yeah.
And like we all have faults, and like someone could listen to that and be like, I don't want to listen to this podcast anymore because they're not promoting responsible dog ownership in public spaces. Totally fair. But I don't want to sit here and pretend that I'm 100% responsible all the time when I'm not.
Yeah. The thing that I do when I'm hiking with Sierra, and she is off leash typically on trails, or I should say always on trails where it's not crowded, is she's never more than a few feet in front of me. And then like as soon as I see anybody off on the horizon, like I'll start to leash her immediately. And then like I'd say 90% of the time people are always like, oh no, it's okay, I'm cool with dogs. But like always making the effort that as soon as you see someone getting your dog on leash, I don't know if it's necessarily a matter of having your dog on leash, but never letting it get to the point where your dog is unwanted off a leash near somebody else. I think as long as it's on leash when you're around other people and it has that level of recall, so the dog is never getting that far ahead of you, I think, in my opinion, that is a responsible form of dog ownership. But maybe not everyone agrees with that, and teach their own.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Anything I say is going to be like, I see it as promoting it, and I don't want to promote it. I don't want to be on here and be like, this is a great place to train, that, like that doesn't, that's not great. But I do enjoy that time I get with Harper, and I do enjoy being able to work on stuff that's harder to work on in the city when I can't take her off a leash and be like, you go all the way up there, go to where you think is far enough. I'll tell you when it's too far. Sit and wait for me to catch up, and you see her want to like go, and she stays. And I enjoy that time we get together to work on those things, and it's hard mentally to not want to do that.
Yeah.
When I know from what I've researched about the time of year on this trail, or from what I've seen from the past days on this trail, the chance of me seeing someone today, let alone in this time frame, is going to be slim. And I think another thing I try to do is I'll keep an eye on my maps. And if I know I'm coming, like I had someone comment on one of my Foothills Trail videos that went up last week, and they were like, I noticed she was on a leash for that one clip and not for this other clip. Like, why was that? And it was because we were approaching a trail intersection. And it's like, I don't know if this is a popular trail intersection. I don't know if this is going to be a popular trail it intersects with. But what I do know is that in point 2, we're going to reach this trail intersection. So in advance, I will put her on a leash so that if it should be a popular trail intersection, or should that be somewhere we bump into people, because typically that's where it would be, I've prepared for that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen all the time. So
one cool thing that the town of Boulder does is you can get your dog permitted to be off leash. I don't know if it's everywhere in Boulder, but at least certain trails, they have to pass like a recall test. There's some test that they go through, and then literally you get a permit to be able to hike with your dog off leash.
Interesting.
So
That's really cool.
Yeah, I wish more places had something like that, because it would put, I think, more people at ease knowing that your dog is trained in a way that it will behave responsibly in those situations.
And I used to love taking Harper to dog parks and stuff, and that was like really fun for a while. But we went to a dog bar once where like this dog was just like going at her, and the owner's like off drinking a beer, and I'm like, that, like, you've now traumatized my dog. We could not leave until, this is like, we're just going on a tangent here, but we couldn't leave until she came out from under the table. Because I was like, if I take you home now and you're leaving scared, you're always going to be scared of an environment like this. Like, you have to naturally get out from under the table and go play again, and then we can leave. And I've had that happen at dog parks too, where it's like, she'll get a dog chasing her because she likes that, and then she'll have like 8 dogs chasing her, and I'm like, okay, this feels like a lot now. They're all starting to get riled up. And so I don't love the dog parks because I'm like, I feel like there's so much going on that we can't work on things. But yeah, that's my flaw. If you want to poke at something that I fuck up in the backcountry, it's that I don't always put her on a leash, and I can own that.
But thank you very much for the thoughtful review.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want to hear your reviews read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars.
There's not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
And send us a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a sticker.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Zach will personally mail it.
Yeah. No, we've got a dog here now who will plug all my faults. Thank you to today's title sponsor, Topo Athletic. Use our code TREKWINTER15 at topoathletic.com for 15% off your trail runners. They're awesome. They're now officially the most represented brand amongst AT thru-hikers. I've most used the Pursuits, which have been great. I love how grippy the tread is on those. They're very durable, and I'm excited to get another season in them just to see how many miles I can get before the uppers start to go. But I know our gear reviewers have cited getting up to 1,000 miles out of a single pair. They're becoming very popular very quickly for good reason.
Mm-hmm. Also most familiar with the Pursuits. I've worn them on a couple trails. I wore them when I walked a marathon. Notable things that I liked about them that I typically gravitate towards in a shoe is that I didn't find that there was much of a break-in period. There wasn't like a opening them from the box, putting them on, having like a week of blisters before that would stop. And I also think to use them in a setting that's not necessarily on trail, like a marathon, which was pretty dumb, like not the shoe for it, to not get blisters on that was also pretty crazy to see. So yeah, great shoe.
If you're in the market for some trail runners, again, use our code TREKWINTER15 to save 15% at topoathletic.com. Super big thank you to our Trek North Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Alex Kindle, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Tables.
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost.
Eric Hoffman, Ethan Harwell. Wait, what was this?
You thought of this one.
Yeah, what was it?
I don't know.
Shit, I already forgot what that was. I'll come back to it. Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg Martin, Greg McDaniel, Griffin, hey, would you bring me a beer? Haley Buckingham,
Dallas.
Mud Tom, Patrick C. and Cielo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger.
Pens.
Thank you to Paulie, our guy, our editor at Old Man Murph's. Go get yourself some delicious beans at ommcr.com. You can follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on TikTok.
Still a thing.
TikTok and Instagram at Backpacker Pod, on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chaunce.
You can find me on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey, Instagram Juliana_Chauncey, and you can get my book Hiking from Home, a long distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon. It's its 5th birthday.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I released it on my birthday. I'm a really
Smart.
selfish person. I'll never forget.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. We would both be appreciative of a review on Amazon. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I've noticed we've been getting a lot more traction on Spotify. So shout out to our Spotify folks out there.
Well, we also had some good feedback. We got a couple DMs about having no ads on Patreon. So if you listened to this episode the whole way through and you thought, could have done without those ads, classic reminder, go to Patreon.
Yeah. $5 a month, $1.25 per episode, sometimes less. Follow us on YouTube. What's up, YouTube?
Hi, Internet.
And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.